Good evening and welcome along to Kick Off with me, Natalie Sawyer, assistant editor of The Mirror, Darren Lewis, and former West Ham, Norwich and England striker Dean Ashton. PSG are back-to-back European champions with a win on penalties over Arsenal. Has Luis Enrique built a monster in Paris, and how do teams come close to them next season? Wasn't to be for Arsenal, but was Arteta too negative, and could they have been more attacking? Liverpool sacked Arne Slot on Saturday afternoon, and Andoni Iraola, it seems, is heavily linked with the vacant role. We'll discuss that. And England are on their way to the USA, and with 10 days to go until it all gets underway, just how far can the Three Lions go? That and loads more coming your way over the next 3 hours. We're with you until 10 o'clock. This is Kick Off on talkSPORT. Darren and Dean, how are you both?
Very well. It's been ages since I last saw you.
Yes.
I think maybe when we did a handover in a TV studio not so far away.
Yeah, I did see you on stage at the SJs.
Oh, yes, you did. Yes. You can talk about that, actually.
Let's talk glowingly of Darren for the next 3 hours.
Absolutely. Commanded the audience.
Oh, bless you.
And
you, Natalie, I haven't seen you for
It's been a while.
couple of months now.
It's been a while. Yeah, I can't remember the last time. Because we did have a show last week. You weren't with us.
I was in Sun Lounger last week.
Did you have a
I
holiday?
had a little holiday.
Nice.
I deserved it. I've been working really.
Yeah. Before the whole World Cup fever kicks in.
Me.
I know, that stage must have just taken everything out. Talking of stages, and perhaps one of the biggest stages in club football, the Champions League final took place at the weekend. And as we all know, it went down to a penalty shootout, which Paris Saint-Germain won 4-3 after a 1-1 draw with Arsenal. Let's get your thoughts, first of all, on that final. What did you make of it, Dean?
It was exactly what I expected it to be. I didn't expect Arsenal to shock anybody and play in a different way. I think tactically they may have shocked a few people just in how good they were in that first half. But we're talking about an absolute European giant, a juggernaut in Paris Saint-Germain, the players that they got. And I think what they did show, even though it did go to penalties, I think over the course of the game, I think they've shown that they are by far and away the best team in Europe. And Arsenal only had one way to beat them and got very close to doing that.
Darren?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think as far as PSG are concerned, if you look at what they've done on the way to winning the trophy, they are the top scorers in the competition, 128 goals. They've beaten the Spanish champions, Barcelona. They beat the German champions, Bayern Munich, in the semi-final. Absolutely epic two-legged affair. And they've beaten the English champions in the final. You cannot look at what they've done and say anything other than they are worthy champions. And they've played the way that they played all the way through the tournament. You know, they've expressed themselves, but they've got that defensive strength as well. Yes, they had that lapse very early on in the first half. That was punished. And it would have been really interesting to see how the game would have panned out had they not conceded early. Would it have been cat and mouse? Would Arsenal have had such a low possession as they had in that match? Some people kind of build it, I think, quite unfairly as the battle for football's soul. You know, do you want the pragmatism of Arsenal or do you want the freedom of expression of PSG? I think that's unfair because Manchester City didn't score that many more goals than Arsenal in the Premier League. You know, Arsenal can score goals, you know, and the basis of any, as you know, you better than me, the basis of winning any football match, any tournament is having a good defensive base and then allowing the players in front of you to express themselves. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the way that Arsenal play football or the way they play the game. I know everyone's been having fun and banter, as it should be. We're a football station and a home of fan banter, but I think, as you were saying, if you look at the pure football, the better team won. But that doesn't mean that you should criticise Arsenal in any way, shape or form.
I mean, look, I think people want to have their go at Arsenal. And that is what is great about football. That's what makes it, is the rivalries and teams, you know, enjoying your demise as such as Arsenal did it in the Champions League.
I was saying this to Jason Cundy outside, actually. I remember doing a sports bar. I used to co-present with the guys a few years ago. And I remember saying, you know, shouldn't you be getting behind the English side? Yeah. But they said, well, no, we are all football fans. You're a football, you love Brentford, you play for West Ham. I won't tell you who I support on here, but...
we know, don't we?
But the fact is that we are all football fans, you know, and to a certain extent, people say no. I wish you all the best and all that, but I want my football team to do better than yours. So I get all of the banter and, all of the stick that everyone's giving to each other. I don't like this term hate watching. I know Mayo Quadri did a terrific video on Instagram about it, so I don't want to steal it from him. But I don't like the term hate watching, because I don't hate Arsenal. I don't hate any team. I don't think anybody does. I think they watch and hope that a rival team doesn't do better than your team, but that's very different to hate watching. And I think that maybe we need another term, as he says, to be able to quantify what that is, when you watch a team and you hope that they don't do better than your team. But I think in general terms, they've had a terrific season and they deserve the credit that they've had so far.
Yeah, and I don't agree with a few of the comments about football's the winner because PSG won the penalty shootout on Arsenal, because that's how they've won the Premier League. How else was somebody going to take on Pep Guardiola? Arteta's sat next to him for a long period of time. He's studied him. He's watched him be a coach. He's decided and gone to Arsenal. He's decided, I can't beat him at what he does.
Yes.
I can't go and try and match Manchester City and play that football. The way I can get success is by getting a team and making them defensively excellent, with then a sprinkling of attacking players that work incredibly hard off the ball. That is what he's decided, and he's been successful in winning the Premier League, and they almost won the Champions League doing it that way.
I think Dean is bang on. I've always felt this, and Jose Mourinho says it very often, finals are for winning. Who cares how you play in a final? Finals are for winning. This garbage about you've got to play expressive football and be, you've got to get extra marks for artistic impression, whatever else. If you get to a final, you find a way to win. And if you look at Arsenal over the course of the season, what have they excelled at? The details, being able to score from free kicks and corners and get those marginal gains in those areas where other teams switch off. How can you reproach a football team for being good at that? I don't think you should. If they could have spotted that other teams are lazy at moments that when they should be switched on or not that focused or don't mark that well, that's to their credit. As you say, they have found the areas. And in American sport, they talk about it all the time, the marginal gains. They found those areas where they can capitalise. I think that's how they've won the Premier League. No other team in Europe has scored from set pieces as often as they have. And that's how they nearly won the Champions League. I think they've had a terrific campaign.
And also, finals are about moments. Rarely do we have a final where it's just team going after each other. Yeah. Usually it's key moments in the game. And it did just feel as if Arsenal, up to a point, those key moments were going for them. But it did always feel as if that second goal was needed. Yes. It didn't feel like they could genuinely keep a clean sheet against that attack, as wave after wave of attack came around. And then there's the two penalty incidences, which I think for me is they're both clear penalties in my opinion. So again, that decision doesn't go. Those are just such key moments in the game.
So you thought the Madueke one was a penalty?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, but hang on.
I don't see that.
Our bromance comes to an end now.
It's so similar. I tell you, the only difference, and the referees won't understand it. I don't think they do understand it. The only difference is Kvaratskhelia puts his leg across. That's the only difference. Ooh. There's no other difference.
I'm going to put two things.
Whereas Madueke lifts his legs rather than if he'd have stepped across Mendes there, it is the same.
I'll put two things to you. A, do not factor in that Madueke locks
the hooking of the arm
around the player as he brings him down. And B, if that is a penalty, then Saka playing basketball on the edge of the 18-yard box is also a penalty.
Well, I mean, in the Champions League, those sort of things have been given. So yes,
that was a surprise that it wasn't, as you say, because it was quite.
But that's not have been given. We should almost have a section on the show.
If I put my arm across you and my arm might end up there because I've got to get across you. The point is, in like the most physical way, I've got to get across you. So where my arm goes is kind of irrelevant. I've just got to get across.
But if you lock as an attacker your arm around the player,
you're not really thinking. You're just trying to get your arm across and then hold that position.
Yeah, but it's not the official's job to determine what you're thinking. It's the official's job to see what is happening.
But he should see that Madueke's got the lane. He's got there. Mendes has to. Mendes has to stop. He has to because
but Mendes doesn't actually try. He doesn't stick a leg out. He is running alongside him, and he gets pulled down. What can he do about that?
I just think he's got the line. He's got it across him, and he's bundling into the back.
But you know, the way you're describing it, it sounds as though you're saying the arm just comes across. It's like a blocking more than, but it's not. He is hooking Mendes at the same time, which then leads to a tumble.
He's not He's not thinking. I'm going to link my arm here.
No, of course he's not.
In two athletes going together at that speed and crash.
But Mendes isn't thinking, I want to foul him.
No, but he's thinking, I can get there before him. Madueke gets there first.
It's not the referee's job to determine what he's thinking. The referee's job is to say that movement, is it legal or illegal? If it's illegal, it's not.
But then it's not really an understanding of how the body has to move in those big physical comings together.
Yeah, but that's... If I do this, for anyone who's listening, I'm putting my shoulder against Dean's shoulder and we're both running for the ball, that accurately describes what you're suggesting. If I lock my arm inside yours, as I'm doing now, and then I go down, there's nothing you can do. I'm pulling you down. You're very hard. I can't pull you down. But
his arm is across him. Madueke's arm is a cross. He's not linking the near arm. He's not linking that arm.
No, he's linking the upper
far arm.
Yeah.
His furthest arm, his left arm. So his arm's gone. He's across him.
That is a movement.
That's now my
deliberately
space.
made.
But that's now my space. This is my space. This is my space. You can't come and take my space unless you foul me, which is how I see it.
I'll end by saying this: let's assume that is a penalty that's given, then PSG have to have a second penalty, so they win anyway.
It all worked out in the end.
He's gazumped me with a hammer.
Well, that was a friendly way to start the show. I quite enjoyed it. Listen, we will talk more about the meaning of that.
It's Danny Murphy.
He doesn't need us right now. He's on holiday. To be fair, we'll talk more about that final, what it means for Arsenal, potentially what it also means for PSG as well. Is this the start of a European dynasty potentially for them as well? Because it isn't easy, as we know, to retain the Champions League title, but they have done it. So more on that to come, plus the latest odds from Ladbrokes. You're listening to Kick Off on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18 and over, gambleaware.org.
Joining us now, presenter, huge Arsenal fan, Joel Bear. Morning, Joel. Sorry to put you through that again.
Morning, Dean. Morning, Jeff. You know what? I'm here to launch an attack on them too.
Good. How are you?
Gabby and Cundy, because I don't understand how you can be on radio representing the people who love football, and that's what you come out with. They came to work wearing PSG shirts. I was in Budapest enjoying the game. I look at my timeline and it's them dancing around, celebrating. Cundy, your team, you love Chelsea, but you played for Ipswich, mate. That's where you had the majority of your appearances, Ipswich Football Club. Gabby, you played for Aston Villa. You love Thierry Henry. You told me yourself last week. Where has it gone wrong? Why is it that there's so much hate for Arsenal? Where's this come from? I mean, what do you think when you sit there and you look at it, Jeff?
No, I was embarrassed by that. Because domestically, well, not domestically, of English clubs, Arsenal have unquestionably had the most successful season. You know, they've won the Premier League. They've been within a spot kick of winning the Champions League as well. Personally, I don't particularly enjoy the way they play. But you cannot deny they have been the best side this season.
100%. It's been effective. If you want...
Good evening. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT, and you are in the company of Dean Ashton, Darren Lewis and me, Natalie Sawyer. Lots more to come as we still digest that Champions League final and get the thoughts from both Darren and Dean on what they think that means for Arsenal going forward, what will they have learned from this season as well, plus also about the future for PSG and whether or not they can go on to dominate in Europe. That to come then, but right now let's bring you an odds update with Ladbrokes.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18+ gambleaware.org.
A very good evening to Chris Wood. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, not too bad, Natalie. How are you?
Yeah, really, really well, thank you. I mean, the season's only just finished, but let's look ahead to next season and where you see the Premier League, for example, landing next season, Chris.
The Premier League. So we've got Arsenal favourites at the moment. They are... Sorry, give me 2 seconds there. Yeah, sorry, they're currently 6-4. Man City are next in at 5-2. Liverpool 11-2, which is so different from this season. They were strong favourites this season. Obviously, had a shocker of a season. Man United showed a lot of improvement, so they're 6-1. Chelsea are 10-1, and then Aston Villa are 25-1.
Okay, I like that. Aston Villa. Okay, interesting. And what about the Champions League then? We've heard Declan Rice saying that there's more from this team to come, basically, that perhaps they can go one better next season when it comes to Europe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they weren't far off in that game. I think they played it the right way. We've got them second favourites at the moment at 6-1 after PSG, who are obviously have been very impressive all the way through the campaign. They're 5-1. Bayern are 6-1. Potentially say they're slightly unlucky this year, but I think they were in the sweet spot for winning it this year with Harry Kane and Elise in such good form. Man City are next in, obviously a bit of a period of flux for them with a new manager. They're 13-2. Barcelona, I think, will have a much better run. They looked pretty strong last season, and they're going to add some players, so they're an 8-1. Real Madrid, obviously. You know, I'm not sure I'd be backing them next season. They're 9-1. Liverpool 10-1. Man United 14s, and Aston Villa there again at 25-1.
Okay, all right. You're shaking your head, Darren. You're not sure. No.
No, I mean, listen, Arsenal 6-1. The teams with the best defence generally do really well in the Champions League. 6-1 looks big. 5-1 looks big about a PSG side that have got all the money in the world at their disposal and look like the most complete team I've seen for a long time. And 9-1 about Real Madrid when you consider Jose Mourinho's gone there with the brief of weeding out the guys who are not prepared to put in a shift and actually knocking them into shape, given that he's made a lot of demands of the club. The club said, this is what we want. 9-1 looks really big to me.
Okay.
No, I disagree. I think Mourinho going there's a negative. He's yesterday's man. I don't think the players will react well to him.
Chris, you're brave to say that.
Oh, no, come on.
Word.
Come on.
That is insane, Chris. I've got to say.
That's getting
I'd love
clipped.
I'd love to say I'd come back next season, we can see, but you know.
Yeah, it might come back to haunt you. Then again, it might not. So that's way down the line when we talk about those competitions. Let's talk about the World Cup, shall we? Because it's not too far away from it officially getting underway. Both England and Scotland, of course, at the World Cup this year as well. What price on them to do the business, shall we say?
Well, England to win the whole thing are 13-2, and we've also got them to reach certain stages as well. So they're 1-4 to reach the last 16, 4-5 to get to the quarters, 6-4 to get to the semis, and 3-1 to get to the final. It does look pretty plain sailing, although I think they could have a real banana skin away in Mexico City, potentially against the host Mexico. I think that could be a really tough game if it all sort of goes to plan. I think they meet there in the last 16 or maybe the quarters. So I'd be looking at those two. Scotland, we've also priced up for the same. They're 250-1 to win the whole thing. 1-3 to qualify from their group. 5-2 to reach the last 16. 8-1 to reach the quarter final. 25 to reach the semi-final, and 100-1 to reach the final, which would be obviously, I think, just getting out of the group will be the first hurdle, and then see how far they can go from there.
Yeah. Listen, we know the Tartan Army are going to be fantastic. At the very least, they're going to enjoy themselves out there. As always, we love to have a satisfaction moment of the weekend. So, Chris, what's yours?
Well, I'm tempted to obviously say Gabriel's penalty, but I'm not massively anti Arsenal. So I thought Lewis Skelly had a great game, and I really liked the moment when he chased back. Just overcame Doué as it looked like he was about to burst through on goal.
Yeah.
They were both absolutely knackered, and you just like two brilliant young players, and they, lots of respect there. Gave each other a little pat on the shoulder, and I thought that was a really nice moment.
Well, you've redeemed yourself after your anti-Mourinho stance.
No, you haven't.
Surely everyone's anti-Mourinho. Surely these days.
Well, I don't know. There's still a lot of love. I'm sure Chelsea
I
fans
think
will.
it's an amazing. I think it's an amazing thing to do to try and go to a team full of egos to try and get them all in line, and then you choose the guy with the biggest ego in football to go and do it. I think it's a crazy thing to do, but that's just me.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
That
All
was
the
Chris
best, guys.
Wood from Ladbrokes. It's 18 and over, gambleaware.org.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18+ gambleaware.org.
Just to pick up on that then, Jose Mourinho going back to Real Madrid, is it a risk?
No, not for me. Not for me. I think that he still has huge standing in world football. He's got bags of experience. If there's anyone who can take on the names in that dressing room, he can. We've turned into a sport that basically has an obsession with youth. And there are some really good older head coaches who are still out there, who still have a good tactical brain. What he has suffered from is that he's taken a number of jobs that where in dressing rooms haven't had the quality that he's used to doing the business with. But if you give him a good squad, he goes in there with a good tactical plan, and he's able to sort them out. He's a very good manager. He's a very good psychologist. He's already been defending Mbappe against some of the other big strikers who have done well in the Champions League. And for him, the game starts long before you ever get anywhere near the pitch. He starts, and you would have played for managers like that, where you hear what they've said in interviews, you've read what they've said in the newspapers. By the time you get to meet them, you're already in awe of them, and you're already ready to run through brick walls for them.
Yeah. He is that type. But I don't think he says anything without really knowing what impact that's going to have. And he's done it before. I think with those type of jobs, he's not like he's going in not knowing exactly the magnitude of what he's going to have to face. And they had superstars when he was there last time, same as they always do.
There's a really key thing about the Real Madrid job as well. When there are managers who are either linked with the jobs or appointed that the players are not having, you generally know it quite quickly. But there's been a general acceptance that he is the right man for that job at this stage. And I think he will do well. I think he will defy the people who've written him off too soon. And I think that if there's an argument that there is one last big job in him, why would it not be the club where he can carry all before him?
I mean, you say he's a good manager. He has fallen out with a few, though.
That's the sign of a good manager. I mean, I see all the time, I'm reading Mikel Antonio's autobiography at the moment, super autobiography. And one of the lines all the way through it is, he loves a manager that gives it to you straight. You love to know where you stand as a footballer, because there are lots of managers within the game who will say one thing, mean another, put something towards you that actually is the opinion of the chairman or the analyst or someone else. Players just like to know where they stand. And Mourinho is someone who lets you know where you stand. There's lots of mythology around Mourinho in relation to certain things. There are other areas where he hasn't handled himself particularly well, obviously with Vinicius Jr. But as a football manager, as a football man, I still do think he has it in him, and I think he'll get a few people to eat their words this season.
Okay. You mentioned Mikel Antonio. He's going to be on talkSPORT Breakfast tomorrow. Right. How nicely timed that was for you to mention him.
I'll give you my bank details now.
Thank you. On the way next, we'll continue then to talk about Arsenal and what they need to do next to perhaps seal the Champions League next.
as I've been waiting to come on, I've just had a message from somebody called Gabriel Agbonlahor. I'm not quite sure who he is, but his message was replying to me writing a diary in the Spectator magazine this week, which is headline, "No one likes Arsenal, we don't care." And he's just said, "I pray for a PSG win." Think about that sentence. That is a talkSPORT presenter on his knees praying to God that Arsenal an English team, do not win the Champions League. That is how pathetic the Arsenal haters have got. It is pathetic.
I want to ask you about that, Pierre, and I'm deadly serious, right? I'm deadly serious, right? I remember West Ham getting that Conference League final. Just about the whole country was behind them. Certainly Palace last week. Everybody was behind them. Why? What is it with Arsenal?
I just cannot understand how any fan base that has me, Keir Starmer, Jeremy Corbyn, the president of Rwanda.
You've answered that.
And I haven't finished yet. And the late Osama bin Laden. Why that fan base would be so detested, I have no idea. No, you know what it is? It's we live in a country I like this about our country, but it's tall poppy syndrome, right? When we were losing and choking, everybody loved Arsenal, right? For the last 22 years, there's nothing other football fans have enjoyed more or loved more or celebrated more than our repeated choking and failures.
Very good evening to you. This is Kick-Off and we are with you until the Sports Bar at 10 o'clock. And it is Darren Lewis, Dean Ashton and me, Natalie Sawyer, with you right now. Let's discuss Arsenal then, shall we, in a bit more detail. Because you both sort of touched on their style of play and how it has received criticism over the course of this season. I'm kind of in the agreement with both of you in the sense that when you look back at the last few seasons of them finishing runners-up, they played a different style of football. Now, surely, in some ways, it makes sense that Mikel Arteta might have gone, that hasn't got us over the line, so let's change it. Let's try and play a different style that might win us the title, that then could lead to, even a more renewed confidence in this team, that they can maybe then go back to playing a more, let's say, stylistic type of football. When you look at what happened, obviously, in the Champions League final, and it was contrasting sort of styles, if you like, what do you think Arsenal need to do to win over, let's say, fans who like the purest form of football?
Well, it depends whether Mikel Arteta wants to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think he will want to. I think he'll be happy with the success that they've had in the Premier League and the way that they've done it. I think he might just want to try and better that kind of style. Maybe have a little bit more in terms of quality when you compare them to PSG in forward areas. I felt there was quite a big gulf in terms of the quality that PSG had and the quality that Arsenal had. Man for man, I thought there was quite a big difference in the quality that they had. He's obviously, sort of through the season has morphed his fullbacks into centre backs that can really play. Lewis Skelly has found himself completely out of the team 4 centre backs that play on the left hand side. Maybe don't quite have as much going for. I know Calafiori can certainly, but balance that with another centre back on the other side, and then bringing in Lewis Skelly for more athleticism in midfield to combat other teams that have that extra player. So it's just, can they find extra quality? What winning the Champions League will have done is it would have certainly opened the eyes of the top stars in world football to go, right, maybe this is the team that's now going to possibly dominate, and I want to win the Champions League, and that team could be the team that could take me there. That's a downside, obviously, not to winning.
Well, let's actually hear from someone who used to play for Arsenal. Speaking earlier today on White and Jordan, Emmanuel Petit says it's clear to see where the Gunners need to improve.
I think it's easy to know what they are missing, For me, wingers. You see that modern football, but it was kind of the same, back in days. But you need to have strong and powerful, wingers with technical skills, that can make differences, on the wings. So for me, there is, before, bringing new players, they have to show the exit door to some players too, with all the respect I have for that, because...
Who are we talking about there?
For me, the lack of Martinelli, Jesus, Gyökeres, I don't know, because he just came into the club. But Trossard would probably keep him. But I would... Madueke, for me, that's not good enough. I'm sorry to say that. But he must do much more than that, to improve. But we need definitely wingers and probably one striker, with space, with technical skills, great movements, something like that. We need to improve the up front.
Which is what you were saying, Dean. It is that forward options that Paris, or PSG, I should say, had better quality in, and certainly with the introduction of certain players that they were able to do off the bench, they certainly had more strength in depth.
Yeah, I mean, I think Saka, is that level of player that I think he's talking about. I mean, he's a player that is going back in his memory to Arsenal when they had Henry, Bergkamp, Pires, and Ljungberg at the time as that sort of front four. Well, what Arsenal have right now is nowhere near as good as that Petit played in. So he can have that opinion because he's gone, this is what we had under Arsene Wenger. This is what I had in front of me. When Declan Rice looks up, he hasn't got that quality.
Dean,
those players have got improvement to make, but will they ever be?
You played then. Has football changed since then?
Oh, dramatically.
In what way?
Because it's about wingers. It's not about forward players anymore. We're almost a decor for the wide players. That's so many forwards now. You're not judged on your goals. You're not. You're judged on, can you be effective enough for the wingers to be the stars? Yeah. That's how I feel football. What it's become is it's about the wingers. And I think when Petit talked about his first thought was wingers, because you look at Paris Saint-Germain, it was there. It's, Kvaratskhelia is just an incredible player. Doué on the other side, again, an incredible young player. And the productivity of the players he played with. Has Martinelli had 1 goal this season? Did he in the Premier League? Something like, that productivity is so important as a forward. It's not good enough just to run hard, defend well, be busy. You've got to have productivity if you want to be the best in Europe. And PSG have that. They have players that work hard, but their productivity levels are just so high.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think the interesting thing with last season, and certainly I was guilty of it, there was a widespread body of opinion. Can PSG win the Champions League without an orthodox striker, without a Harry Kane, without a Robert Lewandowski, without somebody? But then Dembele filled his boots last season, and the wide players filled their boots as well. I think they've got 5 players in double figures this season, and they'd scored 128 goals, like I was saying earlier. It's insane. And it speaks to your point that Enrique demands something very different from his players than what we are used to in the Premier League. It's not all about physicality, but they can mix it if they have to. But there's a really, really high work rate. But in front of goal as well, they're decent as well. And we are guilty in this country of dismissing the French league as the Farmers League and the Germans league as well. We're very disparaging about. But the quality of the top clubs in those leagues is just off the chain. You know, you look at the attacking options that Bayern Munich has. You know, they're no Harry Kane team. You know, they've got quality in all 6 areas. All across their front 6, I should say. So how do Arsenal match that? It's going to be hard because they've got to find a winger on the other side with the capability that Saka has on the right side. I don't want to join in this disparaging of Gyökeres because he's got, I think, his 19 goals this season. He's had a good first season, very good first season.
It's a terrible look to not be picked. It's
to not be picked for the final.
Yeah, I mean, not
why?
Well, the manager can come out and say, well, tactically and the way we want to play, what Havertz gives us was perfect for PSG. He could come out and say that, but at the best clubs, that's who you pick for a Champions League final. Other clubs don't leave out, they don't leave out Dembele or Kroatskia. They just don't. I know Barcola did, but he's not that player. Their main player, the person that you've gone out and bought, I don't think they bought Gyökeres to be a squad player.
So would you be fuming if you were him?
Oh, unbelievably.
First season.
Unbelievably. Yeah, because I'd also be embarrassed.
I'm not contending with you. Educate me.
I mean, it depends what they said to him when he came into the club. Whether they said, you're going to be my main striker, you're going to be the star, the team is going to sort of work around you, or whether did he say you're joining the club and you've got to work for your place, and it probably depends what he was told, but that would really hurt. And Gyökeres, that hurts.
Is there any vindication for Arteta?
He's barely played.
Is there any vindication given that Havertz scored?
Yes, of course.
For Arteta,
of course. But then on the other side, you're going, but Gyökeres was brought in to give you that jump. Has he given it in the Premier League? Maybe people, you can argue the case. Maybe he has. Maybe that was a piece that was missing to get them the Premier League title. But in a Champions League final, to not be picked over a player that's been injured most of the season and gets picked for the big games, that would really, really hurt.
I mean, I'm referring to you because you're a striker,
and that would affect my relationship with the manager. Really? It just would. It has to, because we're so ego driven, especially forward players. You know, we're so ego driven. We have to feel like the main player. I think that would hurt him. But I did look at that final, and I know people thought Arsenal had a. I just thought it wasn't even a fair fight. It wasn't. In terms of the forward players, it wasn't fair. The only way Arsenal were going to win is the way they played. Yeah. I just looked at when you put it down, you look at it and you just go. Well, that's not fair. It's not. It's the quality and difference, and what do? Do Arsenal have to go and get the checkbook out and say, actually, the best players in the world, can we lure them in?
But here's the thing. I mean, I was sitting here while you were talking, thinking, all right, if Arsenal want to get a left-sided winger stroke forward, who do they go for? Because the best ones are at the best club. Mm-hmm. You know, Rafinha's at Barcelona, Kvaratskhelia at PSG, Barcola's at PSG, Doku is at Man City. You know, who is out there? And it may well be at the World Cup we may see the emergence of somebody outstanding, but then major tournaments are notoriously bad for finding quality. You know, it's good scouting and being able to unearth players and maybe spot someone young who's got that potential to make that leap. But right now, there isn't anybody obvious that you would turn around and say that player is going to be a huge upgrade in that left-sided position.
Rashford?
Somebody in my WhatsApp group who's probably listening to... I know he listens to it on delay.
Look, Barcelona's a massive football club. Of course it is, but they weren't really competitive in the Champions League, you would say.
I wouldn't
if Rafinha, if you want... I think it's
Would you take him?
Who?
Rashford.
Oh, God, absolutely, yeah. With a different attitude, and when I've seen him at Barca and some of the performances, I would say there's still an unbelievable player in there.
Again,
it's just.
I keep asking you, right, and I'm almost making you do double time.
I just mean, would I swap Rashford for Martinelli and Trossard? Yes, I would.
Well, but this is what I'm asking you, right? I think Rashford's a confidence player. If he knows that you love him and he knows that you've got faith in him, he will deliver for you. So, my mate's already texted me saying, "Go on, say it." I think Rashford is still a quality player. I've argued long and hard on my groups and whatever else in private. If you knew, goodness me, I'd probably get in trouble. But I still think he's a really good player. I've not thought about him in relation to Arsenal. That's a different conversation altogether. But I do think, obviously, he's available. Mm-hmm. If a deal is there to be done for a big club, he's shown he can score big goals. And he's had a good season when he was at Aston Villa. They wanted to keep him. They couldn't. Now he's gone to Barcelona. He's held down a place. He's done well. I agree with you. He is still a good player.
Yeah. The difficult part is coming up against these dynasty football clubs. You know, Luis Diaz goes from Liverpool to Bayern. It's the Bayern, the Real, the Barcelona, these dynasty football clubs that still lures the best in the world. Yeah. That's what Arsenal have got to try and overcome, isn't it? I think that's the biggest challenge.
Overcome and then become as well. Yeah.
Do you think he'll be accepted at Arsenal, given he played? I mean, listen, there's no rivalry as such, but, you know.
Who?
Rashford.
I think if Madueke can be...
there was a petition.
Then, no, but he has been accepted. Yes, I think now, then... If you deliver as a player, if Marcus Rashford goes and scores the type of goals that he did against Newcastle in the Champions League this season, is Martinelli ever going to score them goals? No, he's not. He isn't.
I am delighted for Rashford because lots of people traduced him, maligned his character. There was lots of negative noise coming out of Manchester about him. And he's still a good person and a good player. And when he's in a club that appreciates him, you know, and people were even listening to this will come out and say, yeah, but what about when he did this and when he did that? All of us, right? All of us, if we are happy in our jobs, you'll want to go to work every day, yeah? If you've got elements at work that are making you feel bad about yourself, or the working environment isn't positive, we've seen lots of players form at Manchester United drop off a cliff, with the exception possibly of Bruno Fernandes. Now, that to me speaks to environment rather than the individual players. And I think Rashford has gone to 2 different clubs now and shown there is still a player there. And he's been selected by the England head coach to go to the World Cup. That tells me the problem isn't the player.
And he might start. The first game for England.
We will discuss England a little bit later on and get your thoughts on that England squad as well. We've obviously spoken about Arsenal, but what does it also mean for PSG? That's on the way as well. You're tuning in to kick off on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18 and over begamblerware.org.
Big week.
Come on.
Big week.
Can I get congratulations?
Happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Do you know how pathetic this is? You got a Tottenham fan sort of celebrating. You can't celebrate. You come in
straight in.
Yeah,
bro, at least like maybe a cup of tea first. Go straight in.
No, mate, because your entire gait and approach is wrong. This is unjust. This isn't how it works. Darren sitting next to me, giving it the big one, is just about fair enough. They're champions. They can get away with it. You can't come in here as a Tottenham fan and celebrate. You've got to celebrate.
You're smiling. Where did you finish?
What did you celebrate?
Where did you finish?
I'm not celebrating.
Where did you finish?
No, we finished mid-table.
I'll put something to you. We had the same season as you.
I kind of agree with that. I just think it's crazy that you came in here. You came in here like the cat that got the cream.
No,
this is the thing.
I think what people are confused about. No one celebrated finishing 17th. We celebrated the fact that we're not going to be in the championship. You don't get that. What don't you get about that? No one wants to be 17th, but once we're in a relegation fight, you want me to be upset that we're staying up, bro? I'm happy, bro.
I think it's shameful that you can find anything to celebrate at the moment. And this is the thing that Tottenham fans are doing. They're sort of going, we kind of won. We won. We succeeded. We made it. Like, no, you lost. The fact that we're having this conversation.
Nobody.
It's the fact that we're having this conversation.
He's coming in for a different level of smoke.
Yeah, he has.
I had an ice cream earlier.
He has. No, literally, I was enjoying the weather. Yeah, he's coming in on war, like,
honestly.
Crazy.
I just can't believe it. I've witnessed you in real life. You've walked through the door like the cat.
You want me to come in here? It's 30 degrees outside. How do you want me to walk in?
I think you should come in here very reticent and basically say, oh my God, by the skin of our teeth, we got away.
Bro, you know I don't play for Spurs, right?
You're tuning in to kick off this Monday evening, and it is Darren Lewis, Dean Ashton, and me, Natalie Sawyer, taking you through until the sports bar at 10. And we are giving you the chance to win a trip to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, courtesy of Adidas. You and a mate could be in New York on June the 27th to see England against Panama live. We'll have your flights, hotels, spending money, match tickets, and the official Try Under match ball all covered. Head to talksportwin.com to enter and for all the full T's and C's. Do that right now. Okay, I always love the breaking news that England have landed in Miami ahead of the World Cup, just in case you were wondering, but they certainly have. They're all safe and sound. As I mentioned a little bit earlier on, we will talk about England and the World Cup a little bit later. We've spent quite a lot of time talking about Arsenal. We should talk about Paris Saint-Germain. And what that... only the back-to-back Champions League winners. You've got to go back, obviously... Well, I say go back, but the last time anyone's ever done that in the rebrand of the competition was Real Madrid when they won it between 2016 and 2018, for a three-peat, if you like. But that's the only team that have done it in the Champions League era. But of course, if you go further back, Paris Saint-Germain become the 9th side to do that in the history of the European Cup. So it's not easy to do, as we know, to win it back to back. The question now is, could Luis Enrique build a European dynasty? Before we get your thoughts, let's actually hear from the man himself. He spoke to the media after that final and highlighted what impressed him about his team.
That we have as a team is our resilience. We are able to play where we need to play. We are able to overcome all the problems, and today we show everybody that even if Arsenal, they are the strong team when they have one goal in advance, we overcome that. We play until the last minute of the extra time at the same intensity. I think we show again the level of the team, individually, collective.
Okay, so that's what he had to say. I mean, he's the type of manager I imagine you want to run through a brick wall for. He just comes across so brilliantly and so loved, obviously, by what he's achieved at that club already, Dean.
I think you only have to look at how hard those players, and we're talking about, world level players, how hard they work as a team, and that's for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's for him and what he demands. I think whenever you see that, I think it's mightily impressive, because there will be egos. Those players will have egos, and you have to manage these big players. But if they're all willing to do that and all recognising what they've built there, I think that's the sign of a top manager.
And it is that thing. I mean, I know it's been well spoken about previously, but obviously what Paris have done, I keep calling them Paris. It's because I'll explain it another time. PSG, basically. Sometimes when I work somewhere else, I'm not allowed to call them PSG. We have to call them Paris. It's in my head. Paris. Anyway, PSG, they got rid of all the superstars, the ones that suggestions that maybe they cause a few problems in the dressing room. And it's now a team of, individuals who've come together as a team rather than be a team of individuals who are trying to individually shine in a match. And that does take time, Darren. But crikey, they're now absolutely benefiting from that.
Well, I mean, the word resilience jumped out from what Luis Enrique was saying. And there isn't a coincidence between the fact that Mbappe, for example, brilliant forward though that he might be, but he's gone to Real Madrid believing he had a greater chance of winning the Champions League there. And for 2 seasons in a row, hasn't really troubled the scorers in the Champions League. Whereas if you look at Paris Saint-Germain, they've been exceptional. And they've been exceptional without him, without Messi, without Neymar. But now you look at their team and everybody defends. Everyone's willing to put in a shift. The players that had been in the shadow of those big players, like Dembele, for example, have now come out and they've really flourished. Dembele, obviously, World Player of the Year. And even though he wasn't that impressive in the final, he was impressive in the semi-final in a titanic showdown with Bayern Munich. I think that PSG have got every chance of retaining, doing a three-peat, if you like, because for 2 reasons. A, because they've got I think it's the 3rd youngest squad in the tournament on average age. B, because there is a basic work ethic that Enrique has at the squad. And you saw afterwards Nasser Al-Khelaifi saying that he's going to... Well, first of all, you saw Enrique saying to our colleague Laura that he's going to refresh the squad. And there was a little Mexican wave of eyebrows in it. Refresh his squad. You just won the Champions League again. But he's right. You build from a position of strength. And I think that is absolutely what they will look to do. Nasser Al-Khelaifi was saying, well, I mean, he obviously didn't want to be put on the spot, but clearly he's going to find him those funds to be able to bring better players in. And I don't think there'll be players that we expect them to sign. I think there'll be players from left field that will fit into the ethos that he has, because you've got to be able to sweat blood for this guy. And if you do, you win a Champions League.
I mean, that's ominous, if you're saying that. I mean, I get the refreshing thing. I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson was always doing that, whether it was with the players or his coaching staff. And we know how successful he was over here. Do you think they could build a dynasty?
Yeah. I think they're fully on the way to it already. And I think it's quite easy to forget that they'd had their knockbacks and they had their moments where they weren't successful, and they just kept going and going and building and maybe realising that those star players weren't the answer, and actually there needs to be more of a collective, still having superstars in your team, but the right type of superstars and the right age. As Darren just said there, you look across some of the really young players that they've got, Zaire Emery being one of them, at times playing at right back in some of the really big games, being able to do that at such a young age, having those talented players. And I think it should hopefully be a positive for Arsenal to go, look, this is what they've been able to build. Whatever you do, if you're Arsenal, you don't go, oh, well, we tried, it just wasn't good enough. That's it. It should be, right, actually, if we want to build and be that type of team that is there every year, then you really have to now go and be as ruthless as PSG are being, in that the squad needs refreshing. You might have to say some tough goodbyes to players. Because...
Can I ask you a question? I know there's a lot of colleagues, the excellent John Cross has done a story today about Morgan Rogers now being in the sights of Mikel Arteta, right? So if you're Morgan Rogers, right, and Arsenal come to you and say, we want to go again next season, we have a really deep squad for the Champions League, do you leave Aston Villa under a fantastic manager, now in the Champions League, having won the Europa League? You've played every week, you've made it into the England squad for the World Cup, you're on the world stage, the world is your oyster. I'm saying way too much here, but my point is, you get the point. Do you stay or do you go?
Because
if you go, you're fighting for a place at Arsenal.
But you don't think like that. You just don't.
Well, you go there thinking I'll be number one.
Yeah. Cool. He'll look and go, well, I can be better than Odegaard. What I can bring is different to him. I've got more athleticism than him. I can travel with the ball better than him. He might be able to find space and conduct a bit more than me, but I'll show you that I've got more to offer Arsenal than he has. For example, you chase the titles if you're an ambitious player.
Yeah.
You do, and of course he's won one with Aston Villa. But are Aston Villa in the next 2 seasons going to become title challengers.
See,
go
I've said on this show-
far in the Champions League. I don't think within the next 2 years they will do. So does he play that long a game, or does he chase?
See, I do have a feeling about Aston Villa. Arsenal obviously are going to build from a position of strength. All the other teams are in transition. You could argue, except for Manchester United. But City are in transition. We don't know how Maresca will do. We don't know how Alonso will do. We don't know how Iraola will do. We all know that they're good managers, but we don't know how they're going to do. So are you in the right place where you are? Or is it the fact that this next season won't be a major tournament season? So maybe it could be worth making that move. And as you say, taking a leap into the unknown. Really interesting.
Yeah, very much so. This summer's going to be interesting, whether it's the World Cup or the transfer window and what teams are going to be doing to back their teams. And it'll be interesting to see what Liverpool do. We'll talk about them next.
Look, he was on stage last night. It was quite an emotional sort of admission, really. He said that after Brighton, I think in week 10, I came off the stage, and the incident in Manchester where he had the argument with Jan van Veen, I was sat at home and I was saying to Faith, I don't want to do it anymore. Just the crowd every week. I said to her, I'm down bad. Now, listen, he was probably out of order to do the crybaby emoji or whatever it was he was doing to Van Veen, and he got a little bit of stick for that. But did we go, as a general public, did we protect him enough? We have to remember that he's 19 years of age. And bearing in mind the way he was talking there about his mental health, and bearing in mind we had a conversation last hour about Ricky Hatton and how, we deal with these situations. Do we have to be a little bit careful with him?
We definitely have to be, because we forget he's only 19. I mean, for me, I've got a 17-year-old who's 18 in a few weeks. They're still learning about life. They've got so much to learn. They're kids. His mistakes that he's probably made, doing the crying faces, he's going to make more mistakes. He's a 19-year-old boy. Like grown men are in a crowd booing him, hurling abuse. Do you know what I mean? I played with loads of players that in training, they were fantastic players. On a game day, they couldn't handle the effect of the crowd. And
do you think there was players that played in your dressing room
100%.
that were equally as talented and gifted, maybe better than some of those that were in the team, but they couldn't deal with the expectation?
They couldn't deal with the expectation, but also the abuse you get from the stands. The fans having a go at you, opposition fans. Not all players can handle it.
How did you deal with it?
I was fine. I mean, I ended up giving them back, and it spurred me on. I was total like one of a kind, where I actually enjoyed it because it made me want to score even more and celebrate to annoy the fans even more. But back to Luke Littler, he's a 19-year-old, 19.
This is Kick-Off this Monday evening here on talkSPORT. I'm Natalie Sawyer. Pleasure to have you with us, and alongside me it is Darren Lewis and Dean Ashton. Lots to come as we look ahead to the World Cup, which is 9 days away or so. Plus, we'll also discuss what's going on in tennis with news of Serena Williams returning at the age of 44. Crikey, there's hope for us all. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, and much, much more as well. But right now, let's discuss what was announced on Saturday lunchtime. This was what was put out on X. It said Liverpool FC can confirm Arne Slot is to depart his role as head coach with immediate effect, and that the process to appoint a successor is underway. Darren, I'm going to come to you on this one first. How surprised were you?
I was very surprised, largely because I'd been aware. Obviously, everyone's been aware of the way that Liverpool fans have turned on Arne Slot, had turned on Arne Slot, which is quite something considering they won the league at a canter last season. Considering that this time last year was a really traumatic period, title parade. Everybody knows what happened during that, and then of course the no team has had to deal with in the Premier League what they had to deal with Diogo Jota, which didn't just affect the club, but it affected the entire league. And so I've always had a lot of sympathy for the club because they had to fulfil their sporting obligations regardless. There was no, you can't have the season off. They've got to get on with it. And I mentioned the autobiography I'm reading, Humans Not Robots is called, and it just made me think of that, the fact that we still expect these guys to go out there and prioritise the points rather than their own emotional well-being. So I was very sympathetic towards Slot that he's had all that to deal with. That said, within the actual club, what's been laid at his door is the fact that there hasn't been that intensity in their play. Now, when you think about the fact that and we've talked about it here on the show, that pre-season was completely disrupted once that news had happened. Quite rightly, football was put very much a distant second, and the well-being of the players was put first. But obviously, you're going to try and go into a 10-month campaign, and you've got players who are not where they should be at the end of pre-season in terms of their fitness. Then you've got a striker who had gone on strike at his previous club, so he arrives not having had a pre-season. He gets injured, you haven't got him for a while. Your other striker who performs well, he gets injured, you don't have him. Your first choice goalkeeper, he gets injured, you don't have him. Your right back that you bought last summer, he gets injured, you don't have him. The young up-and-coming Conor Bradley, you don't have him. Then your star striker in December throws a strop, and suddenly you've got open revolt. It's been a nightmare season for Arne Slot. And I don't want to sit here and say the decision was wrong or it was right, because beyond all of that, the counter argument to it is that lots of people felt there should have been more of an interest in the academy and young players should have come through. The charge that Trey Nioni and Rio Engamoa, who lots of people wanted in the first team sooner, whereas he wanted them to go out on loan. There were lots of things. And what was quite striking was that when he left, you didn't get that outpouring of emotion from the players that you normally do when a head coach leaves a football club on social media. In fact, there was more endorsement of Salah's message criticising Slot than there was in terms of thank you, Gaffer, I owe you so much, from players with whom he'd won the title. Just one last very quick thing. I do defend Slot over this idea that he won the league with Jurgen Klopp's team. And here's why. Jurgen Klopp didn't win the league with that team in the preceding 2 seasons. So how is it that he is piggybacked, if you like, off the success of his predecessor? He did win that league on merit, but the style with which he was able to win that league, and you can speak better to this than me, rival teams worked it out. You can't play in that pedestrian way in the Premier League. There were lots of games where Liverpool's intensity should have swept opposition teams away. I think about Spurs at home, where everyone expected Spurs to get slaughtered. They were all over the place. And Liverpool played with so much deference that Spurs could probably have won that game. So there was a lot to lay at the door of Slot, but set against that, there was a lot for the club, not just Slot, for the club to contend with. And like I say, historically, as a club, managers haven't walked alone, but I think the club have taken a really, the understanding is that Slot felt he would have still been in the job as late as Saturday morning.
Oh, really?
Before the club decided, no, we're going to pull the trigger, and then everything happened very, very quickly.
We'll talk in a little while about the potential of who can come in to replace him. Andoni Iraola is a name now heavily linked with that job, and whether you both see him as the right fit. And I know you've gone through all the mitigating circumstances, but it does feel as it's such a rapid decline from having won the Premier League a season ago to now he's out of a job. Dean?
Yeah, I think Darren makes some really good points, as in things that can just be swept away and kind of forgotten about in terms of the injuries, in terms of the tragedy that the club had to deal with. Players having to go into that dressing room where once they're sat your teammate, and seeing that firsthand, how that can affect, his family and what they had to go, and his children. Taking that in just on a human level is incredibly difficult, knowing that's your teammate who you're close to. So to deal with that, in which Arne Slot, I thought, did everything he could to do that with dignity and still try and get the team on the pitch. I think either the most unfortunate thing or the thing that you could really point towards is the signings haven't worked. None of them have worked. And is that on him, or is that because of injuries? Is that because of not adapting? Is that on the players? That's the big question, because I thought what Liverpool did with those type of signings is they did rip out the pace from the team, from the forward line of the team. With Salah looking like he'd maybe lost a little bit of pace this season. Sometimes that can happen purely on confidence. Confidence can actually affect your body and how you perform and how quickly you can.
What do you mean by that?
If your confidence is that, it's hard to describe. But when your confidence is so low, you're just not the same player. You're not as sharp as you want to be. You're hesitant. You're doubtful. Even the best players maybe doubt whether am I quick enough to beat that player, or is it safer to just play that way? Those things affect you when in terms of confidence, and your almost star player has dropped so significantly in Salah, and then you take him out for the right reasons, and then he goes against you, and you've got to fight against the supporters who love him. That was difficult for him, and I watched him come out a lot during that period, and he never really once stuck it all on Salah, and he played him. When he's back, he then played him again, and played him in the last game of the season when he didn't have to. The biggest thing is the supporters weren't happy with the football. That's the biggest thing. When you were at Anfield, the atmosphere wasn't there. This famous stadium that you're all used to having the pull of the cop and this team that's relentless it wasn't there. It wasn't there. The football was slow and ponderous. They didn't have pace at the top end of the pitch because Luis Diaz, Nunez, they didn't have that clinical finisher, Jota, who sadly passed away, and it affected them. And when you just kind of look at a couple of the stats of what's the biggest difference, well, both boxes. 86 goals when they won the title, 63 this year. Only conceding 41 when they won the title, and 53 this year. But then you look at the other stats, possessions very similar, touches in the opposition box, second in the league, was second in the league when they won the title. Possession won in the final third, so were they actually sitting deep? They were 9th when they won the title. It's 5th, so it's actually better, but as a league, it's dropped. So it's just, if you can't get the players to play to their level and potential at a big club, and that's what he was doing. He was fighting against the best players, not reaching the levels, and I guess that you could say that is on him.
Well, as I say, Andoni Iraola is now, it seems, in pole position to take over at Liverpool, but there were some saying, well, they missed the boat on Xavi Alonso. We'll talk about who comes in next then at Anfield and whether or not Iraola is the right fit.
I saw Rich. I saw Gabby Bonlahor and Jason Cundy in PSG shirts.
Yeah.
Does that really get to you so much?
Really?
Well, to be honest, I'll be honest with you. I love talkSPORT, and I've been on a million times.
Yeah.
It's put me off listening to talkSPORT. I can only listen to this program now because you're the only ones, whether I agree with Simon or not sometimes, he talks sense, and it's pragmatic, real analysis. But all the other programs now, especially the Sports Bar and especially your morning program, it's built around trying to anger other people into phoning in, trying to wind us up, and it's become. We don't care who likes us or who doesn't, because I'll tell you what, you don't hate the way we play, you hate the way we win.
Yeah, but it sounds like you've taken the bait, Rich.
Well, I have taken the bait insofar as talkSPORT, you are the perpetrators between, like I said, Beavis and Butthead that now have turned the Sports Bar into some sort of comedy relief. It's no longer about real pragmatic analysis about the game and about the team.
No, that's what you get. That's what you get here, as you said moments ago.
Yeah, but the Sports Bar used to be really good. Drive, even though Adrian Durham has always hated Arsenal, right? But even goes that we had the Daily Arsenal all those years ago with Adrian Durham.
Listen, let's finish on a positive.
Good evening. This is Kickoff that you're tuning into this Monday night, and it is Dean Ashton, Darren Lewis and me, Natalie Sawyer, taking you through until the Sports Bar at 10. We've been discussing the situation of Liverpool and the fact that Arne Slot, of course, no longer the head coach after he left the club at the weekend, and it all comes down to who comes in next. Before we continue to discuss or get the thoughts of both Dean and Darren on that, let's actually hear from a Liverpool legend, that is Mark Lawrenson, who joined talkSPORT Breakfast this morning to give us his thoughts on the decision to sack Slot.
Yeah, I just think if you look at him, the one thing about Liverpool is they have a certain style, which is football in your face, and it's always been that way, and he just couldn't do that. It's just very, very strange. It was almost like this, this Dutch kind of thing where, we'll get the ball and we'll knock it around and all those kind of things. And I honestly, really, and I mean, it's a really nice guy, but he just didn't get Liverpool and the football club at all.
It's a nice garden that he's got there, isn't it? Beautiful sunshine wherever Mark Lawrenson was. Just as a reminder, Jeff Stelling and Ali McCoist are back with breakfast tomorrow morning from 6 o'clock. They're going to be joined by former West Ham forward Mikel Antonio in the studio and former Arsenal forward Theo Walcott as well. Okay, so that's what Mark Lawrenson had to say on the decision to sack Slot. And as I mentioned, Andoni Iraola now seems the man that they are turning to replace him. We had a chat off air about whether or not we thought he was the right fit. So, Darren, go on. You tell us what you think.
Yeah, I don't mind saying I think he's a terrific manager. If you look at what he's done with Bournemouth, it's been outstanding. But I don't just want to say that because sometimes you drive along, someone says he's done a great job at that club, and you go, what did he do? Right, so this is what he did. He goes there in 2023. Richard Hughes takes him there. Obviously, Richard Hughes now the sporting director at Liverpool. He's improved players all over the park. He's improved the style of play steadily. They've gone up the table from 12th to 9th, now in 6th. Now, 6th place for Bournemouth. You might argue, well, it's a transitional season, so maybe that flatters them. But then you look at their style of play, you look at the improvement in the players, you look at the fact that he lost 3 of his back 4 last summer and the keeper, and has still managed to retain the style of play, build on it. He has still managed to get millionaire footballers to run, basically, which it seems like a very basic thing to say. But I think in the Premier League, to retain that motivation, to retain that intensity, you talked about the fact that some people felt that maybe Alonso should have been the one that Liverpool should have gone for. And you can understand why. He's well loved. He did superbly well at Leverkusen. But I think as far as Alonso is concerned, I've seen a lot of Leverkusen working for another broadcaster, and they were not as intense as Richard Hughes, the Liverpool faithful, we watching Liverpool on a regular basis would like Liverpool to be. And as you were rightly saying, when you think about classic Liverpool under Slot, it was in your face, it was high intensity, it was gegenpressing, it was heavy metal, it was, you know, other teams didn't get a chance to breathe, and some teams psychologically were beaten even before they went out on the pitch. They knew they were going to have a tough old afternoon at Liverpool, and that wasn't the case last season. I wouldn't go as far as to say that a man who's won the title at Akanji didn't get Liverpool, because, you know, it's very, very hard to win the title at Liverpool, and it's very, very hard to win the title when you've got rampant Manchester City and Arsenal having built a fantastic squad under Mikel Arteta in contention with you. So I don't go along with the idea he didn't get Liverpool. He did a fine job. We can't take that away from him. But I think as far as Areola's concerned, Slot I'm talking about, but as far as Areola's concerned, he's a young man. I think he's 43. He's got fantastic ideas on the game. He's very, very intense. Players who have played for him, I think Semenyo did an interview where he said, you don't get days off under Areola. This is a guy who wants you working, thinking about the job, thinking about the fact that you play for one of the biggest clubs in Europe, in the world. And so every waking moment, it's got to be Liverpool.
Well, when you sort of alluded to what Mo Salah had sort of said on social media before, obviously, he left the club, when he spoke about wanting to see Liverpool go back to being that heavy metal that you referred to there, Darren, as well, being a team that is feared by opponents and that wins trophies. When you look at the Bournemouth style of players, you've also sort of mentioned there, Darren, they do have that exciting, forward-thinking, high-pressing, which they've lacked last season, which kind of makes sense why they would turn to Areola.
Yeah, I think that's why he lines up so perfectly, in a sense, with Liverpool. I think as a player, you know that there's these historical mindsets of football clubs and their supporters of what they think their club is. You know, for Liverpool, it's that high energy. It's the cop. It's what Anfield is based on. It's this team that never gives up. You know, Manchester United, it's attack. It's, you know, all these clubs have certain sort of deeply embedded ways of what the supporters see their football club. You don't really understand until you're actually there. You sort of think, okay, I get it, but when you're there, you feel the pressure of the supporters and what they demand of you. I mean, West Ham was quite simple. You could get just as much energy from the West Ham supporters if you ran around and smashed a few players, put in tackles. You would. They would love you. The player of the season might be that player, not the player that scores world-beating goals. You might not get it. It's the Mark Nobles who'll put. It's the Declan. It's the people that will put themselves.
That's why they'll have
Thomas Repka. You know, players that Julian Dix, players that historically put themselves about. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's what. And I felt that when I was a player in Liverpool, you could sense that's what the pain was to them, was to watching their side being so pedestrian and going, it's your fault, and looking at Arne Slot and going, this is your fault. This can't happen our football club. That's why Mark Lawrence has just said he maybe didn't understand it. And that weight of pressure from the supporters I think, is the biggest reason why they've made the change. Not necessarily, I think when someone comes in and wins the title, and then you have all of that we've talked about that happened, you still got Champions League football, you still qualified for the Champions League, and you've got Isak to come back, hopefully playing in the World Cup, having a pre-season, Ekitike, Wirtz, another year of the players settling in. I'm surprised that hasn't been factored, but I think it was the pressure of the supporters and how that their feelings towards the manager that was the tipping point.
I mean, they spent over 400 million in the summer, and at that point we were all thinking, crikey, they're gonna have an incredible future with this squad under Arne Slot. Obviously didn't work out. Do they need more strengthening, would you say?
Some people say yes. I'm not as sold on massive strengthening. I mean, listen, they'll have to strengthen in the right-sided centre-half position because Konaté's gone. And even if you think about Konaté obviously, we talked about Jota last summer. He lost his own father as well. Konaté, he's had a lot to contend with this season. So yes, there have been levels of underperformance. But if you look around the team, they've all got their issues. Andy Robertson spoke about Jota. Conor Bradley spoke about Jota, the impact it had on the team, on the squad. Virgil van Dijk spoke about that as well. So there has been underperformance, but at the same time, there are areas where they can strengthen, and we do expect them to strengthen. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, Jeremy Jacquet, who they signed in January, he will go into the squad in the summer. So that's an arrival straight away. But I think that Iraola will also have his eyes on other players that can come into the squad. I do think not all of the players underperformed. I think Ekitike did well this season for a first season in the Premier League, and he did have that pace and he did have that ability and that composure in the final third. He was very unlucky to get injured. Florian Wirtz was the 8th highest for chance creation in the Premier League behind Bruno Fernandes this season. Now, even that, you might say, yeah, but we saw much more of him at Leverkusen in Germany, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I think there is more to come from him, but I think that he's not been the flop that maybe has been suggested. I think the right-sided forward position, you were talking about forwards earlier, obviously with Salah having gone, there is going to need to be a recruit in that position. Who's that going to be? And the left-sided forward position, Gakpo has been okay, but it's not all that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they were to look to replace him in that position as well.
Just briefly, when you talk about these newcomers from another league, another country coming over, Dean, you've been around players that have obviously come in from another country. How is it hard for a lot of them to adjust?
Yeah, of course it is. I know a lot of them, speak good English, but that's still an adaptation to certainly the way in which we speak and the slang terms and things you have to get used to.
Would any of them sort of say, the physicality or the pace of the game?
I think the biggest thing that used to be said is there's no freebies. There's not a single game where you can rest players, and not to hark back to PSG and Arsenal, but I think that's something the Premier League have to look at. PSG in their own league, they will not play a game to give them the rest to play a Champions League game, whereas players are telling the Premier League that every game is the output is just staggering, and it's only getting higher as well in terms of what they have to do physically.
We are waiting to see, of course, what will happen with Andoni Iraola, but as we say, it seems as though he is the man that Liverpool are looking at to replace Arne Slot. On the way next, the return of Serena Williams to tennis. Yeah, seems like she is returning at the age of 44. You're tuning in to kick off on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18 and over. BeGambleAware.org.
When you guys won it in '98, the double, did you evolve after that?
We knew
or
that
did you stay the same?
we wanted to play offensive football, you know, because for me, I totally agree with you, Simon. I will probably add something, you know, that for me is very important. You cannot play next season the same way because I think the pressure will be high, you know, in the medias, but as well from the fans, even from the Arsenal fans. Everybody is very happy and very proud of winning the Premier League this season, but we are a little bit frustrated in terms of the way they play. So for me, the most important, except the fans and the press, is the players. Do you think the players are very happy to play the way they did? Even thinking that they were leading the score against Paris Saint-Germain, even thinking that Paris Saint-Germain is the best team in the world, that there is no shame to defend against this team because they are such good players, you know. But do you think that Arsenal, the players, will be happy to do exactly the same thing next season? You have to enjoy what you're doing on the pitch. This is the best way of winning things.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, something's going to break, you know, into the team.
Would you have enjoyed playing like Arsenal play?
This way?
Yeah.
If I won the Champions League, of course. But they didn't. They won the Premier League, so they have something in their mind thinking, we did what we had to do to win the Premier League. But are you happy the way you were? They will say, yeah, very proud of defending, but in the meantime, Arsenal is not this. Arsenal is something different.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure why, you know, the criticisms you were talking about, you know, here in England, it's the same in France about Arsenal. I was...
This is Kickoff on talkSPORT. Thank you very much for tuning in this Monday evening. You are listening in to Darren Lewis, Dean Ashton and me, Natalie Sawyer. We're going to talk tennis right now because the world of tennis have been surprised perhaps by the announcement that Serena Williams, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, will make her return to competitive action this summer. That after almost 4 years away from the game. She's actually going to return to Queen's Club later this month for the women's doubles. But what does that mean long term? Is it just going to be that, or is there going to be a bit more to it? Delighted to say joining us is former British tennis player Barry Cowan. How you doing, Barry?
Yeah, very good, thanks. And you?
Yes, very, very well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Like I say, it kind of came as a bit of a shock to many of us, this news. What did you make of it?
To be honest, it wasn't a shock because we heard... It was over 6 months ago that she made herself eligible for the drugs. So you have to, if you're going to play in an Olympic sport, you have to make yourself eligible 6 months before if you're going to compete. So when she made that announcement, well, it wasn't necessarily an announcement. It was journalists undercovering it, that she was part of that program. Why would someone like Serena Williams start that process? So I thought it could be likely, and I guess if she was going to make a comeback, it was more likely to be on the grass than on the clay. Where I'm kind of surprised that it's sort of a soft comeback, isn't it, in doubles? So is this that she just wants to see how she goes, or is it that she wants a couple of doubles matches before maybe then she sees what the future is for Wimbledon with a singles wild card or possibly a doubles wild card, and then maybe trying to make a comeback on the US hardcourt season, because of course her sister has also made that comeback a couple of years ago, Venus. But I'm surprised, I have to confess, at her age with what she's achieved, that she wants to make a comeback, because realistically I think the game's moved on, and you think of how hard now the women hit the ball and how fit the women are. I think it would be a stretch to imagine that even as great as Serena is, that she could get close to the women now.
Barry, 2 questions. Darren Lewis here. The first one is, you're right, 73 singles titles that she's won. Do you feel that she hasn't really been fulfilled enough outside of tennis? And the second question is, you kind of alluded to it a second ago, what do you think the biggest challenges for her will be?
Well, I think I live in the sport. So I can only speak for myself, living and breathing the sport week in, week out. I think she's fully appreciated for me as one of the greatest tennis players that there's been. I mean, and no doubt that, the Williams sisters, they changed the face of women's tennis. You think of the power. And as I said, the women's game now is full of power, and Serena and Venus, I think, probably started that. I mean, and the one thing, Darren, that I've never wanted to tell any tennis player, and that's why, when Murray was making his comeback, we could all have our view on the outside, but great champions should make their own decision when they want to leave the sport or how long they want to carry on. And Serena absolutely has that right. But if you're asking me, as someone who follows it week in, week out, do you think that Serena has a chance? I have to say no. But if she wants to play, and if she wants to play doubles or singles, and she wants to feel that competitive, those competitive juices, it might just be for her children. She might want her children to be able to see her in action. And if that's the case, given what she's given to the sport, she can have as many wild cards as she wants, I guess.
Barry, you made a really interesting point there about obviously the esteem in which she is held and the fact that she has changed the game. And it just struck me that maybe Serena Williams back in tennis in any capacity has to be a good thing, given the impact that she's had, not just on tennis, but on sport in general.
Well, when you're great, if you're on the court, of course that's good. I mean, we're talking about it now. I mean, that's so. The French Open's going on at the moment has been a full of surprises, especially in the men's side. But what's the headlines today? The headlines is not what's happening in Roland Garros. The headlines is Serena. Serena's making a comeback to Queens.
Exactly.
And obviously Queens, in terms of the women, that came back to London as a pre-Wimbledon event last year for the first time, and it was a huge success. And they now have back-to-back tournaments there at Queens, the women's followed by the men's. We know how long and established and great the men's event is. So the fact that we're talking about it, I've always felt, I mean, not that it's bad news for Serena, it certainly isn't bad news, but any news, any publicity is good for the sport.
And just on top of that, I think that if you think about when Queens does happen now, generally the reporters will be assigned to British number one or some of the other bigger names. I can guarantee you every media entity will have a dedicated reporter, probably yourself included, Barry, prioritising Serena Williams. By a million miles, she will be the headline act at Queens.
And when they're doing the order of play next week, obviously I follow, doing a lot of the tournaments. You get your schedule in terms of the allocation of matches. So in joint events, if you've got 5 matches on the centre court, you might have one day 3 women's matches and 2 men's matches, and they'll all be singles. The guarantee next week when Serena's played, they will be having a slot on the centre court that will be for Serena's doubles. And normally doubles would be on court 2, court 3. Serena will be on centre court because people want to watch it. People will be intrigued. I'll be intrigued. I've obviously got my view of where her level would be, but I'll be intrigued to see the sort of standards she's at.
Yeah, I suppose that is the biggest question, isn't it? Where is she at with her fitness, the standard that she can produce once more? In the tennis game in general, the only one you can kind of link it to is Novak Djokovic, in the sense that he's a 39-year-old, she's 44, so I'm talking about older players in the game.
But see, I have a slight thing with this. I mean, people will go to this summer's World Cup to watch Messi. They don't care how he's playing. They just want to be able to say, I saw Messi. Yeah. And I would imagine it's a similar thing in a variety of sports. I was too young for Muhammad Ali, but I would have loved to have watched Muhammad Ali fight. I'd have loved, lots of my sons love boxing, right? They'd have loved to see Mike Tyson fight in his pomp. I think tennis fans will want to see Serena Williams.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I suppose the only thing I was going to say, the difference in the two is that Djokovic is still playing, so he has that consistency
and that's
behind
the key.
him.
That's the key.
Sorry,
Natalie.
I didn't realise you were there, still there, Barry. Sorry.
And that is the key. So Djokovic has played a lot of tennis, and tennis is a unique sport that you're having to make almost thousands of decisions during a match. And how many decisions do you have to make during a point? So if Serena hasn't played for 4 years, I don't care who you are. You can be 26 years of age and having won 20 Grand Slams. If you haven't played for 4 years, time will pass. You will lose as many Grand Slam titles she's won. Obviously, there's still a little bit of muscle memory, but you will lose that sort of instinctive feeling. So, I mean, if she was to come back and play at a very high level, then I'd be even more impressed.
But how will it affect the other players? That's, I think, when I compare it maybe to Tiger Woods coming back, and you can see players that have got in their own right an incredible legacy already. How does it affect them?
Before they walk on or during the match, Dean? That's
both.
Yeah, I think she would still have an aura and a presence in the locker room. There's no doubt about that. But then they'd be nervous to start with, because generally you would grow up. I mean, now the players of 20, 21, 22, etc., they would probably have Serena as their idol. I mean, why wouldn't you? Because she was taking most of her opponents to the cleaners, especially on the grass. But I think you would then, if you start pushing her, and you feel like you can get the better of her in those longer rallies, then I think those younger players who are playing week in, week out, who've played a lot of tennis, I think you would expect that they'd probably grow in confidence. But we're kind of looking further down the line, aren't we? At the start, it's doubles, and she's in one corner, and I can't imagine she's probably lost much pace on her serve. You know, the greatest serve that I've ever seen in the women's game, for me, is still Serena.
Surely people are queuing up to play alongside her then.
Well, this is the thing. I think, listen, first of all, Queens, I speak as someone who, when I was younger, I covered it for the Mirror, and I remember, I know that any tournament that one of the greatest players of all time, arguably the greatest player, says, I want to go and play there for my comeback, they're popping the champagne corks tonight. they're absolutely, they're going to be queuing around the block to get into Queens, first of all. But the second thing is, just to nudge you a little bit, Barry, you mentioned about her power, right? But I don't think that we give enough credit to the ingenuity, the creativity, the fitness levels, the consistency. There is so much more to Serena Williams' game than power. And I think when you talk about the challenges that she might face, mentally, I don't think that will be an issue. I accept physically we don't know what condition she will be in, but I think if you've made a decision to go back onto the tour, then surely mentally you will be where you would want to be. Physically, I accept you might not be. Mentally, I'm not so sure.
Well, she doesn't know, does she? I mean, obviously, right now she's believing, she's probably watching the women's game, and great champions think differently to the rest of us. So she probably feels that she can match them, maybe even beat them. But would she have a rude awakening when she gets on court?
But forgive me for interrupting you, Barry. If you're a champion, you have a champion mentality. You go in, defeat's not an option to you. Now, it might be that the body can't do what your mind wants to. But mentally, you do have that capacity. You do have that shot selection.
Winner's mindset.
You do not what you want to. Exactly. You do have that winner's mindset. And that's what makes this return so intriguing. Because it's not as though you're talking about your average player. You are talking about somebody who was able to do something that the majority of other players simply could not do. And she's 44. She's not 54. I mean, is it impossible?
But Darren, you're absolutely right. She has a winning mindset. But the women hit the ball harder than her now. The women are going to be faster than her now. And the women have played a lot more matches in the last 4 years. So yes, she's got that winning mindset, but so has Sabalenka got that winning mindset.
Sure.
So has Swiatek got that winning mindset. So has some of the other women who've been able to win Major's got that winning mindset. You know, it's someone like Roger Federer. You know, Roger Federer, if you went to watch Roger Federer practice at Wimbledon now and he practiced for an hour, there'd be no different from the Roger Federer when he's winning Grand Slams, but he would be that half a step slower. Not necessarily just because of his age, but because he hasn't played competitively for a number of years. And all these players now, they are finely tuned. They are doing it day in, day out. So it'd be the same as Dean with a great football. What would be great footballer Dean who's 60 years of age? You know, they'll still have the touch, but they'll be 44, 45, whatever. That's half a step slower. I mean, you know, my team's Liverpool. I think that's the same team as you, Darren.
Yes.
It doesn't take much. You know, someone like McAllister, there was a great player a year ago.
Yes.
But half a step slower for one reason or another, whether it's injury or whether he's not as fit as he was, half a step slower, all of a sudden he's, I would say, a great player becomes an average player.
I'll tell you one thing that she's going to be great at, and I think she shall rival Naomi Osaka as the outfit choice that she decides to wear, because that's going to be fascinating to see too.
Maybe that's why she's coming back.
You never know. But quickly, I mean, Osaka is in action right now. She's taking on Sabalenka. The French Open has just opened up completely, hasn't it, on both sides when it comes to past winners all bowing out already?
I mean, certainly for the men's side, I think it's brilliant. And I'm really excited about what could happen towards the end of the week. I mean, again, for me, I like dominance. The Sinner-Alcaraz rivalry was amazing, but when you have a rivalry like that, it's always up to someone else to step up. And then when you got this situation like we've had with Alcaraz obviously being injured, and then Sinner that freak day where, well, it wasn't a freak day, but obviously last week was incredibly hot. He suffered in Rome, even though he won the title with his fitness, and he just hit the wall. It was remarkable. Up 2-0 5-1. First time a top seed has ever lost in a Grand Slam from 2-0 up. It's happened a couple of years, but what it's done is it's opened it up now. With Djokovic losing as well, we will have a first-time Grand Slam winner. Will it be Zverev, who's got close and a couple of times, or will it be one of the 19, 20-year-olds? That's exciting. And then obviously in the women's draw, I mean, Sabalenka was a setup. She would be, for me, the overwhelming favourite. But in the bottom half of the draw, you've got players who have been in brilliant form the last couple of weeks in Svitolina and Kostyuk.
Yeah, a setup, and it's going with serve in the second. So thank you, Barry. It's been a real pleasure and an eye-opener as always. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Cheers, Barry.
Barry Cowan, former British tennis player and broadcaster as well, just joining us after that news that Serena Williams is back after 4 years away from tennis. OK, plenty more still to come. We'll be talking about Southampton Spygate. The written reasons, for example, have been revealed. We'll also get your thoughts on Anthony Gordon's move to Barcelona and plenty more here on Kickoff.
Perry Groves joins us now. Perry.
Good evening, Perry.
Evening, and commiserations.
Good evening. Don't want your commiserations.
I've seen you in
Stick your commiserations where the sun don't shine.
No, son.
I don't want your hollow whatever.
No.
Stick it.
No. It's commiseration.
No, it's not.
No, I think there is commiseration. I think it's fair.
No, because you're pleased.
No, I am delighted.
Do you know what? It's a weird thing, right? I don't get people taking great pleasure from other people's misfortunes.
What do you mean?
Right? When I was brought up, right, to want to be successful myself, right, and reach my goals, but if someone else is successful, be pleased from. The only caveat that is that mob up the road with Spurs, because if they'd have won it in 2019, I'd have emigrated, I'd have gone to Sydney with my boy. Right. But other than that, I don't. You'd rather a French team beat an English team.
100%.
Yeah. Don't get it.
100%.
Do you know what? It just shows you how shallow you both are.
No, not shallow, being honest.
Yeah.
Just being honest.
Because I want Chelsea in it against a foreign team because I want an English team to do well.
Why? Well, I don't get that argument. I don't get it. I never will get it. The hate has got to go deep in the heart.
No, that's why. That's the thing. I don't hate. That's the difference.
I do.
Apart from that, how energy sapping is that? How much are in people's heads?
No, it's so
Everyone's
good.
different though, Perry. I get what you're saying, but there's people that are like me and Cundy that don't want another English team to do well.
Yeah, but again,
different opinions, isn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't want Villa to win the Europa League because I put them in the Champions League. I didn't want that. I know they got them in the league anyway.
Shallow.
But no, but it's nothing against Gab. I just don't want Arsenal. Also, the only side in London to win the Champions League is Chelsea, and that's
that's another thing. By the way, I heard you say that you're not.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Yes, listen up. The FIFA World Cup kicks off next Thursday, and talkSPORT are sending you and a mate to New York to see England live with Adidas, the tournament's official match ball supplier. We're talking a trip to watch England against Panama, return flights, hotel, match tickets and spending money, all taken care of. Plus, Adidas is throwing in the official Try-Onda match ball and a fresh pair of boots too. Here is how you enter, and you might want to have a pen and paper handy. For your chance to win, you can head to talksportwin.com or text the word WIN to 83338. Text and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call this number 0343 418 7260. That's 0343 418 7260. Entries must be in by 4 p.m. on June the 12th, and that's when you will need to answer your phone. It's for 18s and over only, and for UK residents only. This is a talkSPORT promotion. Full T's and C's can be found at talksportwin.com. Just as a reminder, for your chance to win, you can text the word WIN to 83338 now. OK, we've got a little bit of time where we can quickly get your thoughts on the magic moments of the season, all thanks to Ladisfaction from Ladbrokes.
Magic moments of the weekend on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Ever dreamt of playing at Anfield? Place a £5 bet builder at selected odds on the Ladbrokes app, and you just might. 25 plus terms and conditions apply. Gambleaware.org.
Yeah, normally we pick a moment for the weekend, but we thought, let's expand it. Let's see what more we can delve into. So, Dean, you go for it first. What's your magic moment?
Well, I don't think it's been as much about what I've seen on the field this season. There's been this clamour, this desire from supporters of every other club for Arsenal not to win the title. It's just, honestly, I found it incredible how it's kind of captured everyone that they didn't want them to win the title. I thought it was epitomised by Tal Rahman, who is the bottle guy. The Manchester City fan. I just think it absolutely epitomised this season and this desire for Arsenal that they were gonna bottle it. And then there was that key moment, and I think it'll be one of those that I think will be replayed for years to come, which is Declan Rice's "It's not done."
Yeah.
And I think just those two things colliding, I just thought, honestly, it really did epitomise for me this season that we've had. I don't think we've seen as many magical moments on the pitch. It's been more about this fascination with Arsenal winning the title.
Okay. And the fact they have won it, they've gone against the odds as such.
Exactly. And then even Martin Keown had the bottle in here, and it's just ran and ran. Yeah.
Darren, go on.
I've got three.
Oh, crikey.
I know. I'm going to be very quick. One is Brentford beating Man United.
Oh.
The other was Mitoma's volley that he scored for Brighton. But my favourite moment was Marc Cucurella basically pushing Adama Traore, and Adama Traore turning around and looking like the Incredible Hulk, and Marc Cucurella's backside falling out. Outstanding television.
Nicely put, indeed. I mean, you could have mentioned Nkapie's backside actually coming. No, okay, we won't do that one. I am going to give the plaudits to Sunderland, because obviously they've had the most incredible season back in the Premier League. As we all know, teams that have come up have often struggled in recent years. They and Leeds bucked the trend this year. But to not only do that, but to then finish in the Europa League spot like they've done is simply incredible. And obviously I could have picked my team for what we have achieved, in the sense that people didn't give us much of a look in at the start of the season. But I still think, in terms of just an incredible season that they have had, I think you can't get anything better than that. And especially when they did spend a lot of money, it's sometimes a gamble to do that, but then they lost a few to the African Cup of Nations, and it didn't completely alter what they were doing. And so for me, that would be the magic moment of the season, the fact that Sunderland have European football to look forward to. Incredible. Pretty special. Incredible. Yeah, indeed. Those were our magic moments of the season that brought us Ladisfaction. All thanks to Ladbrokes. It's 18 and over, gambleaware.org.
Magic moments of the weekend on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Place a £5 bet builder at selected odds and you could win a chance to play a match on Anfield's hallowed turf. 25 plus, terms and conditions apply. Gambleaware.org.
Nothing.
Okay, just checking. If anyone was interested in what's going on at Roland Garros, we mentioned the Sabalenka-Osaka match. That in the round of 16. Well, Sabalenka has now broken in the second set, so she's a set up and now leads 4-3, serving to go 5-3 up with 40 points to 15 on the board for her. So it's looking good for the number one seed, perhaps, to progress further into this tournament. Plenty more to come here on Kickoff on talkSPORT.
In the penalty shootout, Emmanuel, it struck me to ask you, were you surprised that Gabriel
a little bit
stepped up?
Yeah, I was surprised because I saw, for example, one player. I don't want to blame them. I don't want to point finger at them. But when I see Zubimendi, he's a European champion. He's got character and personality, and the guy just came into the game. He's fresh, mentally and physically. You know what it means to take a penalty at the end of the season like that. It's so hot, so many players were having cramp, during the game. So it was an exhausting season for both teams. And all of a sudden, this guy came into at the end of the game. He's fresh. He didn't take. You see the central defender. This is not typical for central defender to take a penalty shot.
Yeah. The other penalty you were not happy with was Eze's penalty. I know we don't want to hammer the guy, but
football is already difficult, so make it simple. I don't understand why all those guys, is it fashionable? I have no idea. But, I'm very annoyed every time I see someone trying to make a stick, before kicking the ball. He stopped the run and then all of a sudden he do something. Why don't you do a push-up before you take your change? I mean, just go until the limit. But, he stopped twice, his run before he kicked the ball. So, that for me proved that.
What's your club or country's sliding doors moment? Its meaning originating from the 1998 rom-com of the same name, a sliding doors moment in football terms is simply a question of what might have been. An incident in a game where, had it gone the other way, would have altered history. For example, say John Terry had scored that penalty in Moscow in 2008. Chelsea would have been European champions and Avram Grant would have the biggest medal in continental club football to his name. It stands to reason then that he would have stayed at Stamford Bridge for a bit longer, meaning that Luis Felipe Scolari wouldn't have got a look in. Would he have done better than the World Cup winning Brazilian, who only lasted till February the following year? And could he have improved upon Chelsea's third place finish? And as for United, who won the title that season, would defeats in that Moscow final have led to Cristiano Ronaldo leaving the club for Real Madrid a year earlier? And would that have meant that Rafa Benitez's Liverpool won the Premier League instead of them? That's a pretty big butterfly effect, all from one missed penalty kick going the other way. And if you want to dig a bit deeper, there's plenty more that could have been affected. What if Anthony Knockaert had scored his penalty against Watford? We'd have been denied the Troy Deeney moment, sure, but might Leicester have gone on to win promotion to the Premier League earlier than scheduled? And would that have meant that Claudio Ranieri would never make it to the King Power? Would Arsenal or Tottenham, therefore, have been champions in 2016? The most significant sliding doors moment perhaps ever, though, was Paul Gascoigne, Wembley, June 1996. What if this had gone in? That golden goal would have sent England to the Euro 96 final against Czech Republic. 30 years of hurt could well have come to an end. There's so many of these moments that could have altered destiny forever. What if Shearer had signed for United? Would Lampard's ghost goal against Germany have kick-started England's World Cup back in 2010? What if Sam Allardyce didn't get bogged down in all that controversy and denied Gareth Southgate the England job? Does make you think.
A very good evening to you. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT, and I'm Natalie Sawyer, and with me it is Darren Lewis and Dean Ashton. Lots to come in this final hour of the show. We'll talk about England and the World Cup, of course, a little bit later on, now that they have arrived in Florida ahead of their two friendlies before, of course, they then kick off their World Cup campaign. Before that, though, let's talk about one of your former clubs, Dean, West Ham, who, of course, will be looking ahead to life in the Championship after they were relegated on the final day of the season, ending their 14-year stay in the Premier League. Gosh, I mean, it's been a troubled time for West Ham, certainly under the owners, with David Sullivan, and so much. I know we spoke about it before, and we've said that maybe the owners have to take a good, long, hard look at themselves as to why they are where they are. When you look at West Ham, though, Dean, do you look at them and think this is a club more than capable of bouncing straight back up?
Yes, yeah, of course it's capable of doing that. Look, a lot will depend on the turnover of players, who you lose, who you can gain. I think it is the right decision that the manager stays, and I think you have got a manager that will be able to cope with, and has already shown that he's been able to cope with Championship football. So I think that is a big plus, and it's now who can you keep at the club and who can you add to that's going to give you some valuable Championship quality, Championship experience probably with that. But I would fully expect them to be up there next season. Look, I don't quite know how that bridge is built between the ownership and the supporters. I don't know whether it ever can be because of the stadium and the feeling that was left at Upton Park and the feeling that they've had at the new stadium. I'm not sure maybe this ownership will ever get that opportunity to get that connection back with the supporters. But obviously, Baroness Karen Brady leaving means that there will certainly be a change at the club. But they've got to get the playing staff right, and unfortunately, that has been the issue. Is they haven't done well in terms of recruitment to fit the style of the team. And when you have 2 or 3, 4 windows like that, it really affected them. You only had to look at the squad towards the end of the season, and they just didn't have the quality to call upon, and they were too far behind after the start of the first half of the season. Yes, there was an upturn in points when Nuno took over, but all these clubs now that have leapfrogged West Ham, your Brightons, your Brentfords, even Sunderland have shown if you get the recruitment right, that is probably what's going to be key to staying in the Premier League. West Ham really haven't.
I remember I think it was West Ham Leeds, the cup game. I think it was that one, where we spoke to the Athletics' Rashane Thomas. And we obviously, bear in mind that was the FA Cup, but we talked also about the future of West Ham. And he said at the time that he would be concerned about West Ham going down and about the fact that they could do what Leicester have done and have successive relegations. This probably all based on the financial issues that we know West Ham have and the implications of not being in the Premier League. They recorded a loss of over 100 million, didn't they, in their latest accounts? I mean, it is quite worrying, the situation at West Ham, really.
It is worrying, and I think that it's hard to quantify whether or not they got a chance of bouncing back until we know who's going and who's staying.
Yeah.
And a lot of the players who have done the messages, basically, we've seen it before, haven't we, from players? We're sorry it's turned out like this. I'm gutted, I'm hurting. I won't say any more for the time being. They're being very careful not to commit their futures long term to the club, because the way that football works is that bigger clubs will come in and try to pinch them cheaply because they've gone down. So it's going to be really hard to see what West Ham do. I think a number of players will leave. It's interesting that because in the second half of the season, a number of players that I didn't expect to impress did. Disasi did better than I expected him to. Mavropanos was far better in the second half of the season, talismanic for them, particularly from set pieces, than he was in the first half of the season. But the truth is that West Ham bought badly with the money that they got in for Declan Rice, the investment that they put into the club. It just wasn't good enough. There were lots of players who had no place being at West Ham. There was an over-reliance on Jared Bowen, whose form eventually suffered because he just couldn't carry the club for as long as he had done. And he's been a fantastic captain for the club. But he needed more quality, and he didn't get it until the second half of the season. I think sticking with Nuno is the right thing. I know Rashane personally, and he's done some outstanding work in terms of what has gone on in the background. But the bare facts are that Nuno has a track record. He took Wolves out of the Championship and established them in the Premier League. And I think if they stick with him and have that stability, they've got a chance of being able to avoid what you suggest, which is a second relegation.
I mean, when you consider going back to early January, I think it was, when they played Forest, at that point they'd only won 3 games all season.
Yes.
So to finish actually the season with 10 wins, it does go to show that the second half of the season was certainly more impactful under Nuno Espirito Santo. And they they missed out on safety by 2 points in the end. Bear in mind that Tottenham beat Everton on the final day of the season as well. But my point being that when I was at that West Ham Forest game, and when they lost that, the questions were, well, they've only won 3 games all season. How can they possibly win 3 more that might help them in this fight for survival? So there was something under Nuno that seemed to give them a lift in this second part of the season, that he might be able to carry them through into next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear to see that they went out in January and got players in that was going to strengthen the team, give them much needed energy in the team, and certainly in forward areas. Castellanos and Pablo in particular, I think certainly doesn't look technically ready for the Premier League, but I tell you what, he put himself about, and they simply needed that energy in the side. Castellanos the same. Really, the work ethic that they put in. Fernandes starting to become the player that they needed in midfield, getting on the ball. Obviously, Somerville, a slight injury there in midway through, but taking the pressure off Bowen. They needed that. Disasi coming in. So they did the right thing and they brought the players in, and it nearly kept them up. It was the first half of the season that was the damaging part, and that was poor recruitment in the summer.
It was awful decision to bring in Graham Potter. Nobody likes to sit here and call people out, but the fact is that Potter just did not get a tune out of the players. I told you about the autobiography I'm reading, and from my understanding, he just did not have the confidence of the players at any stage.
This is Antonio.
Antonio, and he'll be on talkSPORT tomorrow morning. He'll probably tell you himself, but the relationships weren't good. He alienated one or two important players, and they just couldn't get a tune, and they didn't pull the trick. They obviously wanted to back him, but in doing so, they put the club in danger because by the time that they were able to say, look, let's correct course now, it was too late. You say they were relegated by 2 points. If they'd have pulled the trigger a month earlier, they probably could have been saved. So that's the problem. They bought badly. They recruited. The manager they brought in wasn't a good fit for the club. I'd seen him in charge at Chelsea, and I just didn't feel he was a good fit for West Ham even before he arrived at the club. If anyone's got the... Anyway, I won't make that joke.
You keep that to yourself then.
Yeah, I'd probably keep that to myself. But I just think that that's where it started and that's where it's ended. And I think as far as West Ham are concerned now, all they can do is try to keep the players. But I always think when you get relegated, it's the players who want to stay and fight that are your best chance of going up. If players want to go, you have to let them go. You have to. There's no point fighting to keep players and saying, oh, no, we don't want to keep them. We've got a good chance of going back up. No, got to let them go. Because the only chance you have of being promoted from the Championship is with players who say, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and fight for this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. It is about getting the right characters into the building and making sure that you're giving the manager the best opportunity to have a quality squad to choose from with those characters that are in. It's just, I think the biggest worry for me is, I mean, everyone can say, well, it's the link with the supporters. For me, West Ham is definitely one of those clubs that it feels more important maybe than certain clubs in terms of that connection. And obviously, speaking to plenty of West Ham supporters who want to talk to me about what's happened, is there's this spiral of an ill feeling within the stadium at times, a spiraling of supporters that they've had for many, many years, almost saying, I've almost had enough. I almost don't want to go again. That has to change, that connection between the board and the support of the players, and that has to be maintained to keep, I think, what is so strong about the football club.
We've covered the Championship this season, and it's been brilliant to do so. But now the playoffs are extending to 8. That does make it a bit more, a bit tougher for West Ham to bounce straight back, as it is for Burnley or Wolves as well. Because
or it gives them a better chance to.
Well, there is that as well.
Make sure that they're still in it at the end of the season. But it's easy to say, when a club goes down, well, they should just bounce back. It's a difficult league. It's not an enjoyable league. It's not, unless you're running away with it, and not many teams are able to do that. So if they get good characters in, maybe a rousing promotion push is again what, and it happened, a couple of decades ago where they went down, they came, and it kind of lifted the club again. You're hoping it has that effect.
When you're talking about characters, do they have to be Championship players?
No, they have to be, as Darren talked, players that realise where you are, and are putting everything into getting promoted again, not sulking because they're not a Premier League footballer anymore and their wages have been cut, going actually on, hungry players that actually want to make that jump, get back to getting the club back into the Premier League. Those sort of characters are needed, and they're about. You've just got to, and I think people will be attracted.
I remember talking to Chrissy Houghton about Newcastle when they went down, and he was in charge. He was caretaker charge, and they tasked him with taking the club back up, and that's one of the first things he said to the players: if you don't feel that you're up for this, I'll help you move. But I need people who want to do this. I need people who want to fight for this fantastic club. And he managed to harness a core of players that were prepared to do that, and he got them back at the first time of asking into the Premier League. I don't think it can be done if you've got players who are half in, half out, players who have got one eye on a move. They'll stay as long as there's a clause in their contract that says they can go the first time someone, flutters their eyelids at them. You've got to be all in. You've got to be prepared to fight for it. And it may well be that the club have got to work with Nuno to identify those players that are going to be able to get in. They've got to work with the right agents as well to get the right quality, because a big part of why they've gone down is that some of the players that agents have suggested to the club, they've been awful. They've been poor.
June 25th when the EFL fixtures are released. So that's the date for West Ham fans to look out for, to see.
Yeah, they won't be looking out for that.
Well, they might. You've got to have a renewed... Listen, everyone's got to be all in.
Yeah,
fans have got to be in as well. So there you go. Right. We are touching base on Anthony Gordon next, in the sense that he's moved to Barcelona. Get the thoughts of Darren and Dean on that one, and how surprised they were by it as well. That's next.
Joining us now, presenter, huge Arsenal fan, Joel Bear. Morning, Joel. Sorry to put you through that again.
Morning, Dean. Morning, Jeff. You know what? I'm here to launch an attack on them too.
Good, are you?
Gabby and Cundy, because I don't understand how you can be on radio representing the people who love football, and that's what you come out with. They came to work wearing PSG shirts. I was in Budapest enjoying the game. I look at my timeline and it's them dancing around, celebrating. Cundy, your team, yeah, you love Chelsea, but you played for Ipswich, mate. That's where you had the majority of your appearances, Ipswich Football Club. Gabby, you played for Aston Villa. You love Thierry Henry. You told me yourself last week. Where has it gone wrong? Why is it that there's so much hate for Arsenal? Where's this come from? I mean, what do you think when you sit there and you look at it, Jeff?
No, I was embarrassed by that. Because domestically, well, not domestically, of English clubs, Arsenal have unquestionably had the best, the most successful season. You know, they've won the Premier League. They've been within a spot kick of winning the Champions League as well. Personally, I don't particularly enjoy the way they play, but you cannot deny they have been the best side this season.
100%. It's been effective. If you want to go down to the stats, you know, I had the chance to be on the Budapest show the other day. PSG have scored 45 goals this Champions League campaign. They've conceded
Very good evening to you. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT. Thank you very much for tuning in to Dean Ashton, Darren Lewis and me, Natalie Sawyer. We're taking you through until the sports bar at 10. Anthony Gordon, eh? He's moving to sunnier climes. He's signed for Barcelona. Did that surprise you, either of you? Darren, come to you. England. Got answer. Just gobsmacked.
No. He's a good player. He's a good player. But I didn't think he would end up at Barcelona. And if you think about what Barcelona have, on one wing they have Lamine Yamal, one of the generational talents in world football. On the other, you have Rafinha, who's been a Ballon d'Or contender. Now, there is an argument for saying, listen, Rafinha came from Leeds. Yeah, Leeds weren't exactly pulling up trees when he went there, and he's been transformed. So there's every chance that Anthony Gordon might well be. But I think Anthony Gordon's a good player. I think he will, and he will know this. He will know this. He will have to go some to convince people that he's Barcelona class. And there are lots of seasoned Barcelona watchers who are fascinated, intrigued by this move. Now, for him, that's okay, because he can show people what he's done. He's had a terrific start, very impressive with the linguistic ability that he's shown in his press conference. I remember Luka Modric going to Real Madrid and being voted the worst signing of that particular summer after a year. And since then has won, was it 4, maybe 5 Champions Leagues? So there's every chance that he could defy the odds. But a lot of people looking at the landscape, looking at what Rashford did last season, I've got to say last season now, would say, how is it that Rashford has shown himself capable of helping that club to win the title, and yet they've decided not to stay with him, but they've gone for what many people would regard as an inferior player?
I think it's about 70 million, the fee. And it's a 5-year deal as well. I mean, obviously the price might come into the factor as to why they have gone with Gordon, perhaps, over Rashford. Possibly. I mean, listen, Man United, from what I gather, wanted a lot of money for a player that clearly they don't want. Yeah. And he doesn't want to go back there. He's been much happier in an England shirt, in a Villa shirt, in a Barcelona shirt. But again, I defer to Dean in terms of the impact of being in an area where you are valued and trusted and believed in, because you're able to do your best work, and that's what's happened with him. So for me, he would have been a better option. We've been talking about him in relation to Arsenal, for goodness sake. Now, I'm not saying any of this. This is a wonderful moment for Anthony, for his family, for his career, and God willing, he will seize this moment and he will really run with it and make a success of it. But he clearly have been aware of the surprise that there had been that he'd been able to secure this move. So hopefully he'll be able, as I say, to make people understand why Barcelona and Hansi Flick have seen in him what other people have.
I think he'll be surprised. I think he would. I think he would. I think it is such a big jump, I think, for him in terms of, again, I talk about output. He scored 10 Champions League goals in 12, but 5 penalties. It's the Premier League, 6 goals. I'm talking about output to think that move to Barcelona.
So what do you think? What have they seen in him then?
Well, I think it is the trend of English players starting to go abroad, and in the simplest terms, I think Anthony Gordon and Rashford are quite an interesting comparison, just in terms of what they bring. I look at Rashford and go, he does things that I don't think Anthony Gordon can do. I think he has that talent that could genuinely jump me out of my seat because he does just something so special. I think Anthony Gordon has a different work ethic, mindset in the way that he plays, and I think that is the difference. And at the moment, what the Premier League is compared to every other league it is head and shoulders in terms of high intensity output in and out of possession. Way exceeds any other league in Europe, and especially La Liga in particular. And I think clubs are looking at someone like Anthony Gordon at 25 and going, look at his output physically. For us to compete with Premier League clubs in Europe, I think it's fair to say at the moment, with the success that we've had, relative success, certainly in the other European competitions and also getting to the final, is the Premier League's physical output is so far superior to the other leagues that those leagues want English players that have played in the Premier League because of that athleticism that we have because of the intensity of the league.
The one thing I'll say maybe in his defence is Newcastle played Barcelona a few times in the Champions League this season. He did score against them as well in their opening game of the Champions League at St James's Park. So clearly, maybe in just those There'll be a lot more to it than just that.
I did the one at the Camp Nou for talkSPORT, and he was brilliant.
Yeah.
But he won't have signed them on the basis.
Not just to know, but sometimes to have just seen him in the flesh and see what he can produce just helps you to look a little bit further into that player and what more they can offer you.
What Barcelona will need to retain the title is consistency. They will need depth. What they have that at the moment. They've been able to, and clearly Gordon goes there knowing that he's not going to be first choice ahead of Rafinha. But it may well be that they've looked at Rafinha. I think he's got a couple of years left on his deal, so there's some good long-term planning in terms of, well, you can't exactly hold us to ransom when we've got another option to in your position. But as you say, when you look at what Rashford has done, can do, has done against high-quality opposition, his body of work is stronger than Gordon's. And so, as I said, there are lots of people who are seasoned La Liga watchers, seasoned Barcelona watchers, who are intrigued by this. And I am intrigued as well to see how it pans out.
It's going to be an interesting summer window, especially after the World Cup as well.
Just one last thing on that.
Really quickly, because we've got a surprise guest coming in.
A huge amount of money spent on him. Does that now set the bar? Because there'll be lots of other wingers who and clubs who are selling players saying, listen, I think my player is better than Gordon. I want this amount of money. And suddenly we've got a summer where fees are going through the roof again.
Yeah, okay. As I say, on the way next, a surprise guest joining us in the studio.
As I've been waiting to come on, I've just had a message from somebody called Gabriel Agbonlahor. I'm not quite sure who he is, but his message was replying to me writing a diary in the Spectator magazine this week, which is headline, "No one likes Arsenal, we don't care." And he's just said, "I pray for a PSG win." Think about that sentence. That is a talkSPORT presenter on his knees praying to God that Arsenal an English team, do not win the Champions League. That is how pathetic the Arsenal haters have got. It is pathetic.
I want to ask you about that, Pierre, and I'm deadly serious, right? I'm deadly serious, right? I remember West Ham getting that Conference League final. Just about the whole country was behind them. Certainly Palace last week. Everybody was behind them. Why? What is it with Arsenal?
I just cannot understand how any fan base that has me, Keir Starmer, Jeremy Corbyn, the president of Rwanda.
You've answered that.
And I haven't finished yet. And the late Osama bin Laden. Why that fan base would be so detested, I have no idea. No, you know what it is? It's we live in a country I like this about our country, but it's tall poppy syndrome, right? When we were losing and choking, everybody loved Arsenal, right? For the last 22 years, there's nothing other football fans have enjoyed more or loved more or celebrated more than our repeated choking and failures. And now we've actually climbed the summit. Now we've become Premier League champions again. And frankly, now everyone's beginning to wake up to what I've been telling you guys for several years now, that we have
Good evening, this is Kickoff, and you're tuning in to Darren Lewis, Dean Ashton, and me, Natalie Sawyer. And I'm delighted to say we are joined by legendary manager Harry Redknapp in the studio too. How you doing, Harry?
Good evening. Yeah, all good. Thank you. Thanks, Natalie.
We should say you have been part of a Sun panel that's been put together for a World Cup preview.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was good. Gordon Strachan was down it was great, listening to Gordon. Cole Walker, who I still think, could play for England at right back. He's still a fantastic player. And Sean Custis sort of hosted it, so it was good.
Good. Obviously, you would have no doubt gone into detail about how you feel England will fare, and Gordon likewise with Scotland. Just your thoughts on the England squad that Thomas Tuchel?
Yeah, listen, we'd all pick different squads, wouldn't we? I mean, Cole Palmer hasn't had a great season, but I just think he's an amazing talent. I think he's a game changer. If I was sitting on the bench and with 1-0 down with 25 minutes to go or whatever, and I think he's the type of player that I would love to have available to me. I think Phil Foden's the same. I'm a Foden fan. So them two for me, and Harry Maguire. I'm a Harry Maguire fan. I've always liked him, even when people have not liked him, and he's had lots of stick over the years. I think he looks I don't know him. He looks a great guy. He's great in both boxes. He can score goals from set plays. He's a real threat to the opposition and from set plays. He looks a bit of a leader. I like him. He's my type of centre half. I'd have had him around the squad for sure as well.
I mean, it's always going to be a juggling act, isn't it?
Yeah,
You've got to reduce it to 26. And there's always going to be surprise omissions and even surprise inclusions as well. I mean, Dean, what did you make of the England squad?
Well, people obviously want to talk about the key players like you've talked about, Harry, and I just think really there's only going to be 17 or 18 that actually play. So, I mean, again, as a manager, even with a squad for a league campaign, you're going to have players that aren't going to play.
Sure.
So I just wonder if he's going with certain players because he wants a group environment. He doesn't maybe want a Cole Palmer, who I think is the type of character that wants to play, and might be proven wrong, but body language might not be the best at times.
Yeah, that's good
because it is hard with certain players who have big egos and want to play. When you're there for 6 weeks, you're going to need. I think that's why Jordan Henderson's there.
Then I'd have took Bowen. Not had a great season, but he looks another one would just.
But how difficult is that managing when you've got that? Now it's a bigger squad as well, 26. Knowing you've got those players that are gonna have to be part of it without maybe playing.
Well, you get as you say, when you're picking that, you'll have other lads probably who will be just happy to be on the trip, and others who do definitely want to play. And if they're not involved and not playing quickly, they could quickly probably get very, down about it, or maybe not be great around the place. So it is a problem, but I would still take the gamble. I love the ability of Foden or Palmer. I love that. I'd like to have that up my sleeve to think, I can go and play, go and turn the game for us. Go and do something for it, show us a bit of magic. And if you haven't, there are games where we look pedestrian over the years, I think, and it's lacked that bit of spark. And I think them two especially could give it to us. But,
I mean, I think Morgan Gibbs-White is also unlucky to not get a nod because he's done so well for Forest this season.
Sure, it's a good season,
Yeah, and obviously scored a heck of a lot of goals, really, for his position too. What did you make of the fact that he selected Ivan Toney?
A surprise. I was shocked, I must admit, but difficult, isn't it, really? I mean, you need front men. Only one of them's going to play probably because he's on another level to anybody else, and that's Harry Kane. Watkins, and then you were looking and you think, well, who else is going to go? So, listen, it's a bit left field, but you've probably seen a lot more of him than I've ever seen. He is a handful, isn't he?
He is a handful.
He's a handful,
absolutely.
And if he's fit and he's, he can come on and he could be a.
The interesting thing with Ivan Toney is, I think Thomas Tuchel said he hasn't actually seen him play live in Saudi Arabia, but the manager of Al Ahly, who obviously Tony plays for, used to be a player at Stuttgart when Tuchel was the youth coach at Stuttgart. So he has that relationship with that manager to be able to find out more about Tony and obviously his progress this season.
And his penalty record.
Yes,
Yeah, penalties.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, top penalty taker.
Oh,
interesting.
Ice cold when it comes to those penalties. But were you likewise surprised, Dean, with that inclusion?
No, I think again, I think he wants something different, something that in the late knockings of a game, when you might have to go long, you might have to get it in the box. You need a player, whether it was Calvert-Lewin, Welbeck, or an Ivan Toney. It was going to take one, but again, we're talking about 5-10 minutes at the end of games. Harry Kane's going to play pretty much every minute.
Of course, yeah.
So again, I think it's just having somebody different for the manager.
Yeah, as you say, you could stick the two of them up there late in the game and say, look, we've got to get it in the box, forget about playing, let's stick it in there and see what we can do,
Yeah.
Well, that's what you want to see. Sometimes you want to see that mixing up things and the versatility of the squad.
Yeah. Let's get, there's times you've got to be direct and get it in the box for sure.
How optimistic are you about England then?
I think we've got a decent chance. I'd be lying if I sat here and said I look at that squad and think, well, yeah, this is a World Cup winning squad. I don't. There's a lot of players here who can't get in their club teams, which is, it didn't used to happen. You used to have to be a top player playing every week at the top of your game to get into the England squad. Now there's a lot of players here who have really not played that many, probably 5 or 6 of them who haven't played that regular for their teams, their clubs. So now I'm not sure the back four is strong enough. John Stones, I'm a big John Stone fan. I think he's a fantastic player, but he's obviously can't keep fit. And if John to go there, I remember Ledley King going. Capello taking Ledley when I was his manager, and I'm thinking, well, can he stay fit when you're playing Saturday midweek? And sure enough, he couldn't. He broke down very quickly, having to train as well. So he's going to have to sort of be careful with people like John Stone. He's going to play, and then he's going to have to probably rest and chooses. He might have to leave him out of a game, and even if it's his number one centre half, he might not get every game out of him. But so yeah, I think there's question marks. Natalie, I couldn't sit and say there would be. I think we've got a chance. It's an open tournament. No one jumps out at me as a certainty. There's not a Brazil, or back in the day, or there's not an Argentina you looked at and thought, well, Messi there. It's an open tournament. France, Spain, good. I like Portugal's players, whether they can put it together. They've got some fantastic players, so it'll be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you think the heat is going to be a factor as well?
I'm sure it will. Yeah, I'm sure it will. There could be very difficult to cope with the heat as well. So yeah, it's going to be I love it when it comes round. There's nothing like it, is there? Preparing and watching the games at night, and I don't know what time we're going to be on. It's going to be very late, isn't it?
It's going to be there's going to be some late ones.
Oh
Absolutely.
My God!
The late games. I think that the latest games are going to be around about midnight. And I think there's going to be. I do agree with that general point about it not being a vintage World Cup. There's no Italy. Germany aren't what they were.
No.
Brazil's squad is okay, but it's not brilliant.
No.
Spain are outstanding, obviously, as European champions, and France finalists and runners up. But apart from those, it sounds ridiculous. Apart from those, but there isn't that depth, that huge depth there used to be with some of the football royalty that we used to have in a World Cup. That you would, if you're a Thomas Tuchel, think, oh my gosh, we've got to avoid them. But there are the uncertainties that people don't know about, like Portugal, who do have that depth of talent that people maybe don't take as seriously as they should.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, the fact that obviously we've got an extra round as well, obviously makes it a longer World Cup too. If you were a club manager at this point, would you be watching this World Cup thinking, I just want it to all go well, and, as an England fan and an England man you'd want England to do well, or would you be there thinking, please don't get injured for any of these players?
Well, you do, listen, most of the managers are foreign anyway. They're not too bothered about England winning the World Cup, really, if they're truthful. They just they're more worried about their players coming back safe and sound. As I say, how many English managers we got in the Premier, I'm not sure. It's certainly only a couple, aren't there? So, they won't be. holding their breath for England to win the World Cup. I'm sure if they'll be cheering their own nations on. But yeah, you want your players to come back. You don't want injuries, but and they'll be looking at talent in the World Cup as well. Maybe.
Is that something you would have done then?
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, you obviously look into someone, but there has been a lot of players over the years that have come out of World Cups who have been duds, who have had great World Cups, and teams have gone, oh my God, look at him, and then you bring them in and they're not so good.
Yeah, the race for the signature, and you think, why did we bother?
Yeah.
Indeed. We have to, if you don't mind, just quickly speak about Spurs as well, because obviously you have your links with Tottenham, and a very difficult season, obviously, for them, with the fact that they started with Thomas Frank in charge, then Igor Tudor came in for a brief spell, finishing with Roberto De Zerbi. Have you seen in that time for Roberto De Zerbi something that makes you encouraged for next season?
Well, I see something in him that encourages me. It's very, he couldn't change it. They won the last game. If you look at the games they played, they beat Aston Villa reserves, when Villa was shocking, probably the worst performance I've seen from a Premier League team in years. Absolutely. It was the week before, a big game for Villa, semi-final with Notts Forest. And, it was one or two decent, but I think the manager, given time, putting his own team together, putting his stamp on the team, I think he'll be excellent. And again, like you listen to, I speak to Adam Lallana, who lives near me, and Adam worked with him at Brighton. He said to me he thought he was the best he'd worked with. Wow. Now he'd been with Klopp at Liverpool and won a title. So, and I think Adam knows what he's talking about. So, yeah, I think he's going to, I like him. He's got passion and he's enthusiastic. He's there. He's living it, Mm-hmm. And I think he'll look at a few of them and think, no, you're not for me. I want you out of here. Get rid of them out. Yeah. He needs to shift a few of them out. There's a few there you wouldn't want around you, and they haven't done any good. Get them out and replace them. That's what he'll do.
We have taken up far too much of your time, Harry. We appreciate you popping in to see us.
Nice to see you, Natalie.
Thank
Good
you
to
very
see
much. Great to have Harry Redknapp in the studio with us. You're tuning in to Kickoff on talkSPORT.
Big week.
Come on.
Big week.
Congratulations.
Happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Do you know how pathetic this is? You got a Tottenham fan sort of celebrating. You can't celebrate. You come in
straight in. Bro, at least like maybe a cup of tea first. Go straight in.
No, mate, because your entire gait and approach is wrong. This is unjust. This isn't how it works. Darren sitting next to me, giving it the big one, is just about fair enough. They're champions. They can get away with it. You can't come in here as a Tottenham fan and celebrate. You've got to celebrate.
You're smiling. Where did you finish?
What did you celebrate?
Where did you finish?
I'm not celebrating.
Where did you finish?
No, we finished mid-table.
I'll put something to you. We had the same season as you.
I kind of agree with that. I just think it's crazy that you came in here. You came in here like the cat that got the cream.
No.
This is the thing.
I think what people are confused about. No one celebrated finishing 17th. We celebrated the fact that we're not going to be in a championship. You don't get that. What don't you get about that? No one wants to be 17th, but once we're in a relegation fight, you want me to be upset that we're staying up, bro? I'm happy, bro.
I think it's shameful that you can find anything to celebrate at the moment. And this is the thing that Tottenham fans are doing. They're sort of going, we kind of won. We won. We succeeded. We made it. Like, no, you lost.
The fact that we're having this conversation. It's good. We're having the fact that we're having this conversation.
He's coming in with a different level of smoke.
Yeah, he has.
I had an ice cream earlier.
He has. No, literally, I was enjoying the weather. Yeah, he's coming in on war like,
honestly,
crazy.
I just can't believe it. I've witnessed you in real life. You've walked through the door like the cat.
You want me to come in here? It's 30 degrees outside. How do you want me to walk in?
I think you should come in here very reticent and basically say, "Oh my God, by the skin of our teeth, we got away."
Bro, you know I don't play for Spurs, right? You know that.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Trying to get my script to move up. There we go. The FIFA World Cup kicks off next Thursday, and talkSPORT are sending you and a mate straight to New York to see England live, all courtesy with Adidas, the tournament's official match ball supplier. We're talking a trip to watch England against Panama, return flights, hotel, match tickets, and spending money, all taken care of. Plus, Adidas is throwing in the official Try-Onda match ball and a fresh pair of boots if you fancy them. Here's how to enter. For your chance to win, you can head to talksportwin.com or text the word WIN to 83338. Text and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or you can call this number 0343 418 7260. That's 0343 418 7260. Entries must be in by 4 p.m. on June the 12th, and that's when you will need to answer your phone. It's for 18s and over, UK residents only. This is a talkSPORT promotion. Full T's and C's can be found at talksportwin.com. And so for your chance to win once more, here's a reminder, you can text the word WIN to 83338 now. And we wish you the best of luck. Now, we're just going to talk Southampton for a moment, because the written reasons have been published after their commission, the hearing, which they had appealed the original expulsion from the Championship playoffs. They had a hearing a matter of days after that first announcement, where it was still decided that they should be expelled from the playoffs. This all due to the Spygate situation, where an intern was discovered to be spying on Middlesbrough's training, the team that they played, I should say, in the playoff semi-finals. And of course, this contravened EFL rules of not observing training of a rival's team 72 hours before kickoff. As I say, some of the written reasons have been published, and these are some of the key takeaways from that, because actually WhatsApp messages revealed a lot of how this plan was orchestrated. They said, for example, a junior analyst was sent to observe Oxford's training. This was before their December fixture with Southampton, and that junior analyst sent a message to colleagues saying, "I didn't really have an option and wasn't provided an opportunity to say no. I was an intern and was doing what I was told." When he then sent details from that session back to his boss, he received a WhatsApp reading which said, "You legend, manager loved it." Bear in mind, part of the evidence that Southampton provided from Tonda Eckert was that he said he didn't find any of the information useful. The fact that he, in a response from somebody else, said the manager loved it, maybe contradicts that in itself. Then, upon being asked to carry out a second spying mission on Ipswich, he expressed concern about it, but was told that the boss is adamant that someone needs to go. Now, more details emerge in the sense that another junior analyst had lost their job earlier on in the season. So there was a need for an intern to do this job, and a pressure felt upon these particular individuals that they had to do it, otherwise they might lose their position. Going on into this further, there was a photograph that the Southampton media team had put out when Eckert won a Manager of the Month award, which contained in that image that particular intern that was spotted at Middlesbrough's training ground. And they decided the thing to do on LinkedIn was to delete it in the hope that no one would put two and two together. So it goes to show the extent of this and how deep-rooted it was. Southampton have put out a statement. I'll be honest with you, it's very wishy-washy. They don't actually come out and say sorry to anybody in the sense of the Southampton fans, the Southampton players. It doesn't even say whose message this is from the club. So no one, it seems, is really taking responsibility individually.
No.
And we still don't know the future of Don Derecker either.
Yeah, we wish this had been managed differently and this represented error of judgment and we take responsibility. That's not really sorry, is it? I mean, there's so many elements of the statement that suggest to you that they had hoped. Well, I need to be careful, obviously, because these are very, very litigious areas that we're dealing with. So we've got to choose our words carefully in some respects. But what we don't have to tread lightly through is the fact that they've accepted they're culpable. And what has been unearthed in those written reasons are some of the text messages that clearly show that junior members of staff were put under pressure to go and spy on opposition teams. Now, the argument that we didn't gain a sporting advantage of it, therefore the penalty is harsh, is rubbish. Because the fact is cheating is cheating. Whether or not you use that information to your advantage is neither here nor there. But you know, there's one example of a team, I think it might have been Oxford, correct me if I'm wrong, but they knew the formation of
yes, it was Oxford.
One of those teams, yes. Yeah. Before, you know, this was going to be a new system.
A back four rather than a back five.
And they were able to cope with that system, knowing that, you know, before they'd ever seen it. You know, they were ready for it. Now, again, listen, Dean, you would say to me, with some justification, players talk. You know, people find out information anyway.
Yeah.
And I would accept that. But the fact is that multiple clubs clearly have seen enough from the conduct of Southampton to raise this with the EFL for it to get to this stage.
I think in terms of it wasn't just a one-off. I think it's pretty clear that it was quite systematic, that in a sense they've tried to keep the manager separate from it, even though he will have been using the information, or whether it was useful or not. But I think, again, the feeling of this pressure on interns in an environment that is so pressurized and so ruthless in terms of I think, again, when you're in it, you don't realise what this job can mean for people, how important this might be their dream job, as it is for a footballer to play. You know, an analyst working at a club, that might be their dream job. To work for this football club could be their dream job, and then it's ended up possibly, you know, coming to something like this because of pressure. You know, makes you feel a little bit sick at times, and I think they haven't read the room in terms of what's come out. The one thing I knew would definitely come out, which Southampton have talked about, is this conspiracy with the decision because of the panel member having links to Middlesbrough. I knew that would be something that, and I think
which is what they say in
and that's something that I would have expected. What I am surprised I haven't heard is something towards the supporters. And how this has genuinely affected them as well.
Yeah. And that is actually quite key, because there are, in football, particularly in football journalism as well, you do get, you know, if you're a club, and I speak as someone who covered a local club, so you do have, you retain your objectivity, but you do have the understanding of the local club, so you want to frame things from the club's point of view. And there have been lots of people prepared to frame things from the point of view of the club, if there was anything morally they felt they could hold on to. And there have been lots of people who follow Southampton who have said, listen, I've followed this club for a number of years, and this whole situation embarrasses me as someone who normally would be in a position to put the club's case for the defence. There is no defence for this. We are all embarrassed. You've got long-standing fans embarrassed by the conduct of the club and the way that they've initially tried to basically suggest there was nothing to see before putting their hands up. It's shameful. And there are lots of people who believe that the current head coach should no longer be the current head coach because of the position that the club have been left in, and because of the fact that as a result of all of this, they've been denied the opportunity to contest a place for the right to be in the Premier League. It's going to be a long time before they get over this. And I still think that we don't quite know whether or not Southampton will stay with their head coach, or whether or not they are going to maybe decide that in order to really address this stain on their image, they've got to take some action.
Well, what they say is they're going to carefully reflect on the published reasons, review its internal processes and ensure that governance, oversight and decision-making procedures are strengthened as a result. They say that our responsibility now is to acknowledge what has happened, take ownership of the lessons it brings and use this experience to strengthen our judgment, discipline and integrity moving forward together as a club. What I might say on the Tonda Eckert scenario in particular is, although it seems as though he was might have been the instigator in this scenario, he might not be fully aware of all the laws and regulations. But someone somewhere would have thought, this is not right. Yeah. Once is bad enough, but you've done it to 2 other clubs too. So someone somewhere had to have either taken him to one side and say, "This, we can't be doing this," or they've just all, allegedly, let's say, all condoned it.
Well, the thing is, if you look at the written reasons, I don't know if you agree with this, Dean, it speaks to culture, because there seems to be, players saying, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with this," and other people saying, "No, the manager wants you, got to do it." And
look, Bielsa's the classic example of, he just went, well, it's normal.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that's what this is fine, this conduct, and that's why it was written in by the EFL to have these laws put in place. So you know that now. You know there's going to be consequences to it, and I'm sorry, you can't just go, well, I didn't really know
No.
Well, you're coming to this country and you're managing this country. You should know the rules that you need to abide by. I can't see how we can keep it. I can't see how next season that wouldn't just be every single game what he would have to answer, the way the opposition fans would be against the club.
Yeah. A big decision's clearly
and their own
to be
fans
made
against him.
Well, yeah, and ultimately, like I say, that statement does not acknowledge them, does not acknowledge the players as well, who have no responsibility in this either, but they've missed out on a huge opportunity too. We'll see what happens, of course, with Tonda Eckert's future. That is it for us. It's been a pleasure, as always. Dean and Darren, thank you very much. On the way next, it's the Sports Bar.
Look, he was on stage last night. It was quite an emotional sort of admission, really. He said that after Brighton, I think in week 10, I came off the stage, and the incident in Manchester where he had the argument with Jan van Veen, I was sat at home and I was saying to Faith, I don't want to do it anymore. Just the crowd every week. I said to her, I'm down bad. Now, listen, he was probably out of order to do the crybaby emoji or whatever it was he was doing to Van Veen, and he got a little bit of stick for that. But did we go, as a general public, did we protect him enough? We have to remember that he's 19 years of age. And bearing in mind the way he was talking there about his mental health, and bearing in mind we had a conversation last hour about Ricky Hatton and how, we deal with these situations. Do we have to be a little bit careful with him?
We definitely have to be, because we forget he's only 19. I mean, for me, I've got a 17-year-old who's 18 in a few weeks. They're still learning about life. They've got so much to learn. They're kids. His mistakes that he's probably made, doing the crying faces, he's going to make more mistakes.